We're diving right in. We're wrapping up 2024 in our first of, I think it's going to be three, unless for some reason we, I don't know, go super long and decide to split into four, but probably three episodes of our game of the year debates. It's a little different this year because we don't have Jeff, although he still might try to join us for one or two of these when he's available. And he has played more games this year than I think he gives himself credit for. He's played a bunch of stuff this year. Um, but yeah, it's mainly going to be the three of us ranking our favorite stuff this year. So just to be really clear, even though we haven't played everything and we don't represent every type of gamer out there, this is the definitive list of the best games this year. There's no question about
if
it.
you wanted to look at historically the best
Mhm.
games of 2024, you would go to the Current Gen podcast top 10 list.
This is where to go.
These are just facts. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, normally you're looking for opinions, but here everything is objectively correct. So
that's what we give you is objectivity on everything always.
So you're welcome.
No feelings ever.
Nope. No. I mean, not here at least. Not a chance.
I am feeling pretty good about this episode. Dang it! Not allowed to do that. Sorry.
Tim, shut it down.
No feelings.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
Kyle. All right, so we're gonna dive into it in a little bit today. We're going to be ranking together, like our debates are going to be for two categories: best story and then best indie or small game. And then we can define what parameters we want for each of those when we get to rank, and we'll define those together. And then we'll do a couple of separate lists, and then we'll close it out with, hey, if there's anything you wanted to highlight that I don't yet have scheduled, like maybe a game or two you want to call out. I have a few of those too that I'm like, yeah, you know what? This was my favorite. I don't know. Pet game or whatever thing you need to highlight that you feel like you played. Farming Simulator. I know, Dan, you play a few of those.
Favorite game where I do cartwheels.
Favorite cartwheel game. Yeah, if you've got something like that. It's funny. I was listening to some of Giant Bomb's. I don't listen to all of it, but I was listening to some of it. And to their credit, they do come up with zany, silly, wacky categories.
I like that. Yeah.
And like their opening category was best hole in gaming. And their nominees were like, as they went through it and started to nominate stuff, it was pretty funny. Like I really liked the way they did it. Everything from the black hole card on Balatro, that's technically a hole. Someone nominated Indiana Jones and the Great Circle because it's a circle. And they're like, well, not every circle is a hole, and not every hole, but every hole is a circle. Anyway, they had this whole conversation about.
I love debates about stuff that don't matter at all. Like on that level, like this doesn't matter at all, but like that really doesn't matter. I don't know.
Exactly. And they had an entire category just for the best Astrobot bot. Like which special bot rescue is the best one. So
it's a lot of bots.
And they got really into it. They're like, where's the Bloodborne bot? Why isn't it on here? You know what I mean? Like they were really upset if their favorite one wasn't included. So
great category. I like
this is why we don't have Bloodborne in 4K.
That's right. So yeah, but we don't have any of those wacky. But although we do have the next few weeks, if we want to come up with some wacky categories, we can. But
I peaked with best asses of whatever year it was. I mean, it's there's really it's all downhill after that. So
that's the peak. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
Best clips.
Yeah, best cliffs are pretty good.
I mean, cliffs for me, like, listen, that's a me thing. I find the cliff sexy and
I'll tell you what, Dan, and I'm not lying. I don't look at cliffs the same in video games anymore because of you.
You changed my life.
And you did. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Thank you.
I stop and I look at every cliff and I go, Dan would like this cliff.
Dan would like this one. Or
that's a good cliff.
This is not Dan approved. There's no way.
Yeah,
this is a
Dan would
cliff.
not like this cliff. Yeah.
No, not even a little bit. Yeah.
This is why. So I need to do what you're telling me is in the next couple of weeks. I need to make a cliffs tier list.
You might need to do that. Yeah.
A cliff list.
A cliff retrospective, go back through all of it and see what all the video game's greatest cliffs are.
That's right. You need to do that. Well, the last week, which will be 2 episodes from now, the third one, we'll have a little more open. We're just going to do a ranked list of best overall game. So that gives us a lot of kind of cushion on either side of that debate. If there's another category you want to add in or some other games you want to just be like, you know what, this doesn't fall in any category. I just freaking loved these games. And you just want to list off a bunch of games you loved. That's fine too. We can have just kind of like a top games that I just loved and I don't care if they fit in a category type of a conversation too. So, or best, I don't know. It doesn't have to be cliffs. It could be like best natural formation in gaming. So it could be cliffs versus water versus like waterfalls maybe. The way trees blow in the wind in some games, it might be. I can't tell you what to pick.
Keep my cliff notes together for you. My cliff notes together, and then I'll get back to you. So
Nice. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go over the rules again real quick just for folks listening. Since I have every year I listen to all kinds of different other podcasts and shows and outlets as they rank stuff when they provide those. Sometimes they just give you the final lists, and those are interesting too. But I feel like so many in MinMax, Easy Allies, and Easy Allies hasn't put theirs out yet, though, I don't think.
Usually January, yeah.
Okay, but I saw MinMax, some of theirs, and some of Giant Bomb's, and both of them include a lot of remakes, remasters, and DLC. And it's very loosely defined. And to their credit, they talk about it and they figure out like, hey, here's why it's okay, because we decided if it's a new video game experience, it counts for this year. And they kind of explain their reasoning for it. That's totally fine. But the way we do things here, the right way, is that we want to celebrate full new games from 2024. And so anytime there's something really cool from an old game, we'll just create a category for it and make sure we get to highlight it and celebrate that thing. So we'll make sure we do best DLC, best expansion. I think last year we had a category called best new thing in an old game, and that was anything, any kind of update, any kind of port or collection. So we can do something like, we don't have to rank that. That would just be things we want to celebrate as well. So this is just celebrating the year 2024, which is a very unique year because it's got some really high highs for some people in some niches, and then some people consider it a mediocre to okay year. I consider it a good to very good year, somewhere in that range. For some people, it had an instant classic. Like, this is now one of my favorite games of all time. So it's just been a very unique year in that respect. So I want to honor and kind of celebrate all the 2024 stuff that is actually new. And so that doesn't mean we can't talk about the cool stuff that hit other games too, though. Like No Man's Sky had cool updates. So did Elden Ring with great expansion. We'll talk about all that stuff in a separate category. So what I was thinking too is, with there being only 3 of us, for most of these categories, we're going to try to get it down to a top 5 and then rank. That'll save us a little bit of time, as well as just let us have a bigger list of honorable mentions that almost made the top 5. Now, we can adjust on the fly. If we get to a list and we just start to get a vibe of, oof, we need a top 10 for this one, that's totally fine. We can pivot, and you guys can help me determine when we do that. But for the most part, hey, a Friends reference. For the most part, we'll just do top 5s. As far as tiebreakers go, it is we're just going to do our ranking system where we do our little bit of math where we can. But ultimately, like, their average score on something like OpenCritic is a pretty good tiebreaker too. Just like, all right, well, here's what critics or gamers had to say about it. So, all right, does that make sense to you guys?
It does. Also, I'm really mad at myself because I'm like literally like maybe 8-ish hours away from finishing Metaphor. A very story-heavy game.
Yeah.
Didn't finish Neva, an indie game. So there's a couple games I'm like, damn it.
Yeah, but you played a little bit of it at least, right? So it's not like
I've played at least an hour of it, but I wanted to at least finish those
two. So you're like a third of the way through it then. So
yeah, basically, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And by the way, Neva was another game that I kept hearing left out across all these outlet discussions. I'm like, why is no one talking about Neva? Yeah. Very strange. A lot of people fighting for really obscure games. I'm like, ooh, let me check it out. And I go look at it and I go, oof, this is venturing into try-hard territory with the way people are fighting for some of these.
There's always that.
Well, I saw a lot of Lorelei and the Laser Eyes and a lot of people's comments, and I'm like, come on, guys, what are we doing here?
A lot of that.
It's a fun title, though.
It is. Yeah. Great
title.
Studio, too. I like that studio a lot.
But hey, our compatriot, our co-host that's missing right now, Jeff, he's the kind of person who would normally tell us and advocate for a Lorelei and the Laser Eyes game, right? He's one of our guys who plays a lot of these indies. He was the first one to be like, nope, not for me, don't like it. And I don't know if he refunded it, but he definitely didn't, he stopped playing it quickly after starting it. So that was all I needed to hear, that, okay, I'm not even going to bother with that.
Which is a shame, because it has a cool look. Like, I like the look of it, but
sure. Yeah.
But,
I agree. All right. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to kick things off with a non-debate list. So nothing to rank together this time. This is more just celebrating games that came out in early access this year. And I don't know if you guys played too many early access games, but I've got a list of a few I wanted to mention. And if you have some that you've played, would love to hear some of your favorites as well. So did either of you get into some early access gaming this year? And this could be across, it's usually, of course, on Steam. or sometimes on Epic Games, sometimes on Windows, like for the, what do they call it? The Xbox preview or Game Pass preview or whatever they call that. So that's usually where it's going to live. Every once in a while, PlayStation will have an early access game too. I just think it might say early access. I'm not sure, but anyway. Did you guys play any early access games that launched this year?
Yeah.
All right. Dan, did you?
I was going to say, if I did, I don't remember because.
All right. Well, if we list some, you might jog the memory a little bit if you are familiar with some of these. But Kyle, what are some of the ones that you played that you enjoyed this year? And whether or not you ranked them is up to you. But
I didn't really rank them, and I don't even know if I can remember off the top of my head. I didn't write these down because I thought I was going to remember them, and here we are.
Just give me. How about just give me one, and I'll give you one. And then
that's good. And yeah. The very first one I played in 2024 was Power Worlds in January. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about that. I like that game. I thought it was a lot of fun. I put like 40 hours into it. I played it with my buddy. Like we had a great time or whatever. This game could get canceled tomorrow, and it wouldn't erupt my life at all. you know, I had my time with it. I don't know if it's getting better or anything like that, but that fever around it for that hot second was fun, and it was fun being in it. You know. Yeah. So I will remember that first like month that it was like out, and that was a good time. So.
Power World, in my mind, that came out last year. I don't know why. I just think it seems like so long ago that it launched. But yeah, that was the 2024 game. Yeah,
yep, they lost a big
and
court
still
battle
technically
and lost their Pokeballs. So
I know they lost the Pokeballs, but they're still adding content. They've added I think at least one, maybe a second new island or new area.
It's funny because like I was really into the building my farm and building all my stuff and putting all my Pokemon or not Pokemon to work,
non-Pokemon to work.
But the second it was time to like explore, and this is the part that everyone liked about the game, I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So the second I had to leave my home, you know, like it was just like, I don't care about any of this. So,
these kind of games are interesting. There's that one that's going to come out next year from that Tencent owned developer. That's a Horizon lookalike that has some Power World ishness to it as well. You know, I feel like we're going to start to see more and more of these that are like, this feels familiar. It is different, but boy, is it different. Yeah. Or boy, is it similar. But anyway, Power World, that was definitely, that was one of the biggest news stories of definitely the first quarter, maybe even the whole first half of the year.
It wasn't until like Helldivers came out in terms of like hearing about the community and controversies and stuff like that.
Yeah, so. Power World launched in January. It's almost a year old now.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I'll also throw out there Hades 2 launched this year. Now some folks are already using it in their rankings for this year, which I think is unfair to the game because and they're like, well, it's a complete experience. Like, that's true. Like I haven't even finished what's there, and there's plenty there, but it's not at 1.0. They haven't added every element. They haven't even added the real ending to the game yet. So in my mind, it's not a full game.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's okay that we all have different definitions of complete, but there is a definition of complete, and that is...
The question is, can you complete it? No. Okay, then it's not complete.
But I get what people mean when they say that. You know?
I do too.
Like, there's a lot here. It's like,
I do too. That's what I do with Valheim.
Versus complete.
Yeah. Those are different things, but I get what you're saying.
Like, Valheim is a full game experience, and they still are adding their last biome sometime in 2025. So, like, all right. Fair enough.
That felt like a complete game 2 years ago when I originally played it, you know. So again, I get what people are saying.
I totally get that too. But Hades 2 is, if I had to rank these, I'd probably rank it first, just because even in its early form, and it's already had one major piece of content, they're probably in the first quarter, maybe second quarter, going to launch their second major piece. They are hoping to hit 1.0 in 2025, but they don't have a date for that yet. But they are targeting, sometime this year to launch it. But it is a really polished game. It feels great. It looks great. Yes, it's very familiar to Hades, but it is a very different vibe in terms of the artistic choices they're using, the colors they're using, the weapons that are available to you, the characters, the motivations. All of it is it's a really cool follow-up to an amazing game in Hades 1, which was an awesome, awesome game. So yeah, I think Hades 2 is fantastic, and I can't wait to see what else they put out for that one. So that to me is one of the best. It's probably my favorite early access game this year. Did you play any other ones, Kyle or Dan?
Yeah,
Dan, you played some Power World, right?
Yeah, I played literally there was one day where I dabbled for like an hour. It's an interesting concept, but like the things like I like the idea of these studios doing different Pokemon-esque things because I feel like when it is successful, it kind of like makes Game Freak. They're the dev, right? Game Freak, I
Yeah.
believe.
Wait, for Power World?
For
No, for Pokemon.
Pokemon,
For Pokemon.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it makes them kind of like maybe think for a second, like, all right, guys, like we really have been doing the same thing for like 2 decades. Like, let's
Maybe
like
we should make a Pokemon that's the shape of trash, you know?
yeah, or
Like a
an
pile
ice
of
cream
garbage,
cone,
Yeah, right.
or keys,
How about
you know,
lamp
like,
or chandelier?
But imagine if a Pokemon game, the next mainline one, or even the most recent one, had launched with Power World like visuals. I think people would have loved it. Now, Power World is
I
not like
totally agree.
it's not visually perfect, but it certainly
Sure.
is
No, but
a
it's
reimagined.
absolutely,
It looks cool.
and I think that's in a lot of people's like mind's eye. Like that's what they want Pokemon to look like. When you hear
Yeah.
about like an open world Pokemon experience on like next generation Nintendo hardware or whatever, like this is probably what people have in mind.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
look specifically, not.
I
not
agree.
the
you want it
style.
to look a bit sharper, a little more full,
I mean, full
and
blown 3D.
run
You know.
and
Right.
run well too. So
Yeah, not
And
running
have it
12
run
games,
well.
You know.
That's true. Yeah, so Power World. Kyle, what other early access games did you play?
It was one I'm sure I know you played as well, but Enshrouded, that was January.
Mhm.
That never hit 1.0. Did it this year?
Mm-mm.
That's still
No.
yeah.
They've had a bunch of updates. They had one major update, which I still am intending to go back in and play, but they've added a whole
Yeah.
new area. It's like this whole wintry area. They updated how NPCs and your farms and animals and all that stuff work. So they did a huge content update, but no, they've backed off on their, like most devs, it seems like they've slowed down on their very ambitious roadmap, and they've said, hey, it's going to be ready when it's ready. So like they had a really ambitious roadmap map. It was really successful, and they spent a lot of time cleaning up what they launched. Valheim did the same thing. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of these games end up doing the same thing.
You don't realize how
Success
broken
com-
your game is until millions of people play it.
Exactly. Success
is-
brings along
that's
with
fine.
it a lot of like, all right, now we got extra work to do. So
Yeah.
um
I like that game a lot. I only had played it on my Steam Deck, and it looked like garbage on that thing, but it's still fun to play. And then
Yeah.
loading it up on my new PC, I'm like, oh, this looks really good. This is a good looking game. Yeah,
it's a pretty game on a PC. I
really
played it.
is, yeah.
I did one play session on my Steam Deck and then uninstalled it on there. I just was like, nah, this isn't where I want to
this
do
is
this.
not the place. To do
It was
that,
for
yeah.
2 reasons. I didn't think it ran all that great.
Yeah.
I guess it was okay, but it was certainly, like you said, muddy. But then also like building, I like using the mouse to build. Like I like to use my
Ye-
controller for combat and
It's
exploring,
very hard
and
to
then
build with
switch
the mouse.
over to my
Sorry.
mouse to build. You know.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
very hard to
yeah.
build with a controller in that game.
Oh,
Very much
yeah.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, Valheim's the
It
same
was
way.
fun.
I like to build with the mouse there too.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I like that game though. That was fun. I'll jump back into it once some a few more features like come up on it. But I played like 14 to 20 hours of that game. It was pretty good.
Right. Yep, that's a good one. All right, so another one that I jumped into this year was called No Rest for the Wicked from Moon Studios. You guys remember they made Ori,
Yeah.
of course. Now this studio is
Hmm.
owned by Private Division, I think,
Forgot about
which
that
really
Okay.
went through some. I think it was Private Division. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyway, their publisher / owner, whatever, went through a major upheaval, and so Moon Studios just kind of went quiet on this game. A lot of fans, myself included, kind of searching Discord and community boards and Reddit and trying to figure out like, where is this game? Are they working on it? Are they done? Is this it? Because it certainly is not a complete game. But man, is it cool. The visual style on it is excellent. It's really difficult, but really satisfying. It's got such a cool, like, cell shaded, painted, isometric kind of almost like a rounded worldview. It's very interesting. It's very unique. I really like the way that it controls and the world, the lore that they've built. But it's definitely feels like an act 1, maybe of 3, hopefully even more, maybe 4. I'd love for there to be multiple acts in this experience because I think I spent 20 plus hours in it, maybe close to 30 because I rolled a second character at one point just to try a different class build. But it does not feel like a complete experience yet. It feels like right as they're about to send you into a larger space to really explore and travel between cities, it comes to an end and they put you into kind of almost like an end game loop where you can keep doing this run, see how far you can get and loot stuff and then start over. There's their version of an end game called the Crucible. So yeah, it felt to me more like I got a secret early access to something that no one else did. That really feels like early access to me.
Mhm.
But man, is it good. And I'm really hopeful that they they clean it up. And I did try it on the new PC that I got this past summer, and it's a pretty game. And they really have improved
Yeah.
how it runs. It was really rough when it first launched in terms of technical hiccups. You know, it had a lot of those early on. But yeah, No Rest for the Wicked. Also,
that
one of my
just
favorite.
has a really great look.
Has a good look, and the logo, like the symbol that they have with the arms, the hands grabbing each other, is really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a cool game. Did either one of you play Path of Exile 2?
Mm-mm.
No.
That is another
No.
one that's just launched in early access this past month. It was
Good.
between this and Indiana Jones, December was a pretty big month for a couple of highly anticipated new games.
Yeah. Big
so
games.
yeah, big games. Path of Exile 2 has a lot to it. There's so much to do. It is an incredibly deep game. Just take a look at the ability tree just to get an idea of just how deep and how exact you can create builds in this game. And you can see that, hey, it's an early access, but it is absolutely kind of ready for the big time in terms of the depth of the gameplay. There's a lot more content to come, more areas, more bosses, all that kind of stuff on the way. But man, Path of Exile 2, another really excellent early access game.
Which is really impressive because it's free to play. Like that's the main thing too.
Well,
is like
you got to pay right now, but it will be free to play.
Sure. Yeah.
You get like the equivalent of like the in-game money, I think, for whatever you put in.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So you're basically like getting the game for free with $30 of in-game currency or something like that.
Yeah, and so I think it's worth it if you look at the game, watch the videos, you know, check out people who like it and how they've reviewed it, and if you trust their judgment, go try it. It's only $30, but also it's going to be free.
It's majorly popular. I mean, like the people who like these types of games, like it sounds like to me people are really loving it. So
yeah, it's popular with streamers as well. It's also very difficult. So a lot of people kind of like got into it and like, yeah, let's do this, and then they get to that first boss, like this is a tutorial boss. Holy crap!
Like,
good.
and then it only gets tougher from there. But yeah, I think Path of Exile 2 is a very cool game with a lot of potential for the full release. I feel the same way about Windblown, which I really only played up through like the first. I don't even know if I got to the first main boss. I did a couple of mini bosses in there. It's from the Dead Cells developers, Motion Twin, and it is a isometric roguelike action RPG. Really colorful, really pretty. It runs very smooth. So I do recommend giving that one a look if you like Dead Cells and kind of trust their ability to create really smooth combat, which they're amazing at. Dead Cells was fantastic. And Windblown has a lot of promise, but it is a roguelike. So, you know, you have to think Hades, right? Where you're going to go through these areas, and as you die, you go back to your hub, you talk to characters, you learn new things about the story, you get new missions, you go back out and try again and get a little bit farther and unlock a few more things. And so, yeah, it's that pattern. In Dead Cells is the same way. So, but a very different vibe than Dead Cells in terms of the perspective of the gameplay, the way it feels is different too, although it feels really good. They really went for something different. I give them props for not.
What was that one called again?
Windblown.
Windblown. Okay. Yeah.
Windblown. Yeah, I think it's on early access for $25 right now, which I imagine will probably be the full price when it launches at 1.0 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my guess. So that one's really, really good. And then two more real quick that I think need a lot more time to cook. One is Towers of Agazba, which has already gotten some updates, which is very cool, but this thing needs a lot of quality of life. You know, everything from the inventory system to, you know, the recipe system with the frequency of drops of some of the early crafting requirements are like, man, I can find everything I need except for this one thing that should be easy and I can't spot it. And they're working. I think that is, if they haven't already, they've talked about patching those things pretty early for some good quality of life. Like you're opening several hours of a survival game. It should be like you should be getting a nice pace of that upgrade hit. Yeah. Like, okay, cool. Ooh, I can build something with bronze now. That's cool. And then you kind of go, I can. iron now. Like you should kind of have that progression. Yeah, intrigue me a little bit. You know, you build your first little town, and then your little add-on house and your little add-on workshop over here that now upgrades a new thing you can build. So I think as they fine-tune that, it's going to be a lot better. It's a very creative approach to the survival game genre, but yeah, certainly needs a little more time to cook. And some of it is really weird, and some of that's just in the design. Like the some of the animals and creatures and characters, and some of it's hard to explain unless you see it. Like, go watch some videos of this. Some of the creatures in this game, and I don't know, it's very strange. Like, some of it, you also feed creatures in order to get them to poop because you need to collect their poop. So there's just some
Need that
weird
fertilizer.
things in it.
Need that fertilizer.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a strange, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's unique, that's a good thing.
You need poop.
And the last one I'll mention is another one that I need to go back and give it a fair shot now that it really has had a lot of updates, and that's Nightingale. It launched in a rough shape earlier this year, and I was so hyped for this game.
Me too. Yeah, I hope that one shapes up.
I hope it does, and I think in a lot of ways it's improved quite a bit, but it's still. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of outlets gave it a review based on its initial launch, so it's in like the 50s average on OpenCritic.
Does no favors.
Which is kind of unfair, I think, to give an official score. This is why we're doing this as a separate category. Early access games aren't fully ready yet for the most part.
Yeah, why are you using your review scale that's created for finished games? It's very weird to me.
Yeah, if you're going to give it a 7, but it's in early access, then maybe the highest score it could get is a 7. So far it's a perfect game. Is that what you're saying? Because the game is not finished.
Well, Steam has all reviews as mixed, but recent reviews mostly positive. So that's
it's on the upswing. Good. On the upswing, maybe. Okay, that's good. Yeah, but I'm still intrigued by the style and the concept of this with the different cards that you use, and the first-person perspective, and just kind of the setting is really interesting, and the outfits and armor and gear looks very kind of Victorian meets sort of steampunk and stuff. Like it's an interesting combo, and fantasy like all mixed together.
Yeah, that was what got me. It was that it's a very interesting combination aesthetically. Yeah.
Sure. So those are the ones that I wanted to highlight. Any other ones, Kyle or Dan, that were in early access that you thought were?
I think of some of the other ones that I played that were in early access went full. So like Mullet Mad Jack was like early access when I bought it, but it went 1.0 at earlier, later in the year.
Yeah.
There's a couple others. So I think like Maniac was early access, and then the one went free. So it's like they don't count, and they might come up later. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so a lot of games, especially those smaller games, they'll do early access for a couple of months and then they'll launch, which is which is nice that happens sometimes, because sometimes early access seems to be where a game lives forever, just in this purgatory.
Sometimes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I wanted to highlight those, and also, if it's not clear, those games, none of those are eligible for kind of our main 2024 categories, so we won't be talking about those. I mean, maybe we'll give them a shout out when it comes to, let's say, visuals. Like, hey, I know it's not eligible, but man, No Rest for the Wicked sure was a looker. But it's not going to be on our top list because it didn't release this year. It'll release in a future year, hopefully 2025. All right, so that's it for early access games. Some really good ones that came out this year. All right, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to take a look at Best Story in Gaming in 2024. And so what I did with our spreadsheet here is, again, we're trying to, I don't want to spend a ton of time just nominating games, and because that can end up taking most of the time. I really want to spend most of our time talking about the ones that the three of us like a lot. And then we can kind of, like, to me, that's much more fun than just saying, hey, I heard this one has a good story. Let's move this over. So I kind of did that ahead of time into what I call recommended nominees. So when I share this, you guys will see, where did it go? Is it this one? Yeah, I think it's this one. Tell me if you can see that, and I'll zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, no, I can see that perfectly.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see, maybe if I go like 125, it's even easier to see.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
All right, so eligible games.
There's
probably even more eligible games that I didn't put here. I can already think of one because I just started playing it today, called 1000X Resist, and I only played it for like an hour, so I don't have enough to tell you whether or not the story is good. But it's got overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. It's one of those games that I think the people who have played it are saying it's just mind blowing. It's got the sci-fi. Hang on, sorry, I lost the window there.
What is it called?
It's called 1000X Resist. I mean, it's definitely very anime.
Yeah,
that was right off the top.
I have that in my wish list. Yeah,
I just went ahead and bought it today. Overwhelmingly positive, and hearing this is where these debate discussions are really cool because it gets you pumped about a game maybe you weren't thinking about. Before. But I heard someone hyping up 1000X Resist, and I was like,
you got me with anime aesthetic.
And it's a very weird. I mean, Kyle, you like when stories are like, "Hey, let's get weird." I mean, I know that's a Kyle
embrace it.
thing.
Yeah.
This is a weird one, man. Like right from the beginning, the opening cutscene, it's like, what is happening? And who?
Check
It's
that one out.
so.
because that kind of like that's why I got that game, and sadly, I'll bring it up more in indies, but for story, I can't really speak on it too much because I didn't play the whole story or even much of it. But
Yeah.
that what is that game called? Minds Beneath Us. It's that like cyberpunk like.
Oh,
I shared it. It had that really cool aesthetic or whatever. And
I played that one a little bit.
everybody online says the story, if you see it all the way through, is like one of the best stories in video games. But
That's
like
the one
I
where
can't-
you move almost like the dancing necromancer one, kind of, right? As you move, you attack. Is that one?
I don't remember there wasn't really any combat in this game. It's
No?
kind of
Okay.
a
Could be a
point and click
different one.
game.
Okay, I'm thinking of a different one.
It reminds me of that what the hell was that when you played as a chick and there's like
Anno
Mutationum, yeah.
Yeah, very much like that. And it's
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
yeah.
Minds Beneath Us. All right, I'm gonna check that one out too.
Mine's Beneath it. Yeah, I dropped it in the chat like a couple weeks ago, and it was
Okay.
like that is a good game. I just wish I
Mm.
played it more, and I wish I could like be like, yeah, let's celebrate it here. But because that is considered one of the best stories of the year by a lot of people.
Wow.
Now, how is this for an anime game title though? 1,000 X Resist. I mean, that's
Yeah,
about as...
it checks the boxes of like it kind of feels like someone like took a dartboard and just like put
Yeah.
random English words on it and just like
Yeah.
darts.
And a letter, not even a word,
Yeah,
just a
right,
letter
exactly.
in the middle there.
Oh, you gotta add X in there. Yeah. We've been doing
Yeah,
that.
so it's... I will just say, because I moved, as you guys were talking, I went ahead and added it because it did come out this summer. I have played enough of it, just the setting. I think I played, it was about an hour or so. And the setting and some of the things I've already gone through on it have already made me go like, dude, this is intriguing. So do I want to fight for it for a top list? No, I haven't played enough of it. But I just wanted to highlight it as this one's worth a look. It's got a great story so far. I don't think it's going to have a lot in the realm of combat and gameplay.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of time manipulation sort of to it as you get into it, but not really like so far at least fighting anything. That's not really
I
what
wonder
it's
if
about.
the X is actually cross because I'm looking at like the pictures of it and it's like, is it actually X or is it like
It
is
might
it
be
1,000 cross
I mean,
resist?
if this is a
I wonder.
Japanese game, X is usually cross. But yeah, I don't really know who made it. So, but this 1,000 cross or X resist or whatever actually came packaged recommendation with me with another game called Mouthwashing, which I also
I've seen that one.
Which I also hear has an amazing story, but like I didn't play it. So another one that a lot of people might be like, hey, why are they not talking about this? This one was heralded as like a great story. I don't think any of us played it, sadly. So
that one
right,
was
hang on.
weird though.
One
I've
quick
seen
second.
some
I got to
of
make
it.
sure my dogs get outside. You guys keep going.
Sure.
I'll be right back.
okay.
I saw somebody stream Mouthwash and they didn't play too much of it because they almost like were like, this is almost too weird. Or I think maybe they were just getting frustrated with some of the mechanics or something.
Yeah, what keeps me away from these types of games is that like my brain isn't set up for like I'll just walk in somewhere and just like interact with stuff until something happens. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Yeah,
you have to like trigger a specific thing.
Yeah,
you know?
and that one's like I think there's like 2 parallel universes in that one or something like that, where you're going back and forth between like you have to manipulate something here and it changes something in the other universe. I think there's something like that to it, and again that might sound great for a lot of people, but that is why I haven't bought it yet. Something like that should be an insta buy, but it sounds like a little more adventure-y, you know, in terms of like being like maybe more like Myst or something like that, you know.
Yeah, I never played Myst.
All right, so here's what I thought we could do. I went ahead and this isn't necessarily an exhaustive list of eligible games, but it's pretty full. There's a lot of games there. And so I shortened it down to what I consider, based on our gaming discussions this year. I do try to pay attention like a good boy and listen to what everyone's saying and what they like. And so I have an idea of what could be moved over into our kind of recommend. So I'm going to have a column for all of our categories called recommended nominees. Now, if I left something out, you just tell me and we'll add it into this list. But this just helps us focus in the conversation a little bit earlier. But so in the recommended nominee list, for those of you who are just listening, not watching, we've got 1,000 X Resist, we got Banishers, Black Myth, Call of Duty, Dragon Age, Dragon's Dogma 2, Aiden Chronicle, Final Fantasy 7, Flintlock, Frostpunk 2, Indiana Jones, Life is Strange, Like a Dragon, Lorelei and Laser Eyes, which Jeff isn't here to talk about. I wasn't sure if he would make it or not, so I thought I'd bring it just in case. Least Funga, The Time Shift Warrior, Mario and Luigi Brothership, Metaphori Fantatio, Neva, Nine Souls, Pacific Drive, Prince of Persia, Rise of Ronin, Stalker 2, Hellblade 2, Star Wars Outlaws, Stellar Blade, The Crimson Diamond, which I really meant to play before this. About these two categories is the one area I think that would have done well, story and indie, and I failed because of Red Dead Redemption 2. That's the fault.
So basically, what we're doing is adding Red Dead Redemption to the list.
I'm adding it. It's going in all the categories. The Cub, Echoes of Wisdom, Plucky Squire, Thaumaturge, UFO 50, Unicorn Overlord, and Space Marine 2. So anything that you guys kind of have on your own short lists, or maybe if I can try to scroll down or on the left side here, anything else that you'd like me to throw into the nominee list there for best story? Was there anything that you feel like needs to be added? Kong, Survivor Island, or Survivor Instinct?
I mean, that's just game of the year, period. Like, we already figured that out. So
yeah, that's very true.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, nothing's coming to mind, and as you're scrolling through, I'm not.
Okay.
Not,
if something does come to mind, it's okay to add it in last second. Up until we have our final five, then.
And I see Trails of Daybreak here. I would be the only one ever like cheering that game on. That game actually came out in like 2020. Sure. So like it just came out here. So that's one of those weird ones where it's
this is America's
theoretically it just came out, but like since I'm the only one who played it and it's not going to get a lot of backup, I would rather fight for other things. So you just won't see me talking about it too much.
I hear you. I'm still going to put it here so history will show that we at least considered it. You know what I mean? I don't want to be judged.
History will show. There you go.
History will show it. So, all right, cool. I mean, there's a lot of good stories that were told this year through gaming, I think. So what I thought we could do, and we'll go just alphabetically, and we'll kind of do a snake draft style as opposed to in a circle. So it'll go Dan, Kyle, Tim, Kyle, Dan. And so we'll do like a snake draft style. Pick a game that you want to have seriously considered for this category. Now, this also could include, if you want, you could use your turn, especially as we get towards the end of it. If you kind of run out of ones that you want to fight for, you could highlight one that you're like, hey, I don't want to move this over, but I do want to just say I liked the story in this one. So you could also give like just kind of a nice call out to something if you would like to as well. So Dan, why don't you kick us off? And this doesn't have to be your top pick. You could go in whatever order you want. There's going to be some that are no-brainers to move over. So this is not necessarily you saying this was your favorite. You're just going first.
Don't disappoint me, Dan. Go for it. Go with your heart.
Listen, Senua Saga really just moved. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't play Senua Saga. I didn't even play Senua. Rebirth all day.
There it is.
All day.
Yeah, gotta bring Rebirth over. All right. Kyle, what do you want to bring over?
I'll do my no-duh Kyle one. Let's bring over Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
There it is. Like a Dragon. All right, and for me, my no-duh one is Banisher's Ghost of New Eden.
Cool.
And then circling back the other direction, I'm going to throw Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes over there.
Yes,
cool.
Tim.
Right.
Yes.
Kyle, what are you going to put?
I'll bring over Metaphor just to get it out of the way.
Metaphor Fantasio. Is it Tazio or Tazio?
Fantazio. I think it's Italian.
Is it like
Italian?
A T? Is it like a T in there? Fantazio.
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 Hard A.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Dan.
Let's see here. Well, scroll down there a little bit there.
Did you play anything else this year, Dan, or was that just the one?
Yeah, it was basically those two games. Because there were like hundreds of hours.
They were like 1,000 hours each.
Listen, I love Stellar Blade, but like the story is not something where you're like, we're talking about story. Stellar Blade's on this list. Like that's not, but Stellar Blade is amazing. So do
you want to bring it over as a nominee, even if you know it's probably going to be okay?
No, right. No. I don't think that's like where it's strong. So it's not like the worst story ever in my entire life I've ever played, but that's not its strong suit.
Okay.
Trying to think. Even Dragon's Dogma story is like kind of.
It's not great.
It's not. Yeah. It's not like amazing.
It's not about that. Yeah, it's about the adventure.
Yeah. Dude, I don't know, man. I can't really. You know what? Screw it. Just throw Stellar Blade on there because I can't.
All right, Stellar Blade.
Just whatever. Just throw it on there.
Stellar Blade's coming over. All right, Kyle, back to you. Or actually, it should be Dan again, but I think he's out. Dan, do you have a second?
Oh, and Neva. Throw Neva in there.
Neva. All right, good call.
Throw Neva in
All right, Kyle, go ahead.
Dragon Age.
Dragon Age, the Veilguard. Nice.
I
All
haven't
right.
played enough of it. Yeah.
I'm gonna throw Indiana Jones over there,
That
guys.
was gonna be my next one. Yeah.
Indiana
Waiting for
Jones
that.
story is so fun. And then I'm gonna say, and I need to play more of it, but I love the setup for Nine Souls so far. So I at least think it deserves a nod. I think that lore there is really cool. So Kyle, it's back to you.
I may want to just nod to Star Wars Outlaws, but I don't. The story is like fine,
Yeah,
but
I
like
agree.
the reveals are good and the characters are good, but like it's very like, oh, I've seen this story before.
Yeah.
So just a nod, but it's not worth bringing over.
Okay.
I might be kind of at my wits end with this too. I mean, I like the story of Space Marine 2 a lot, but I feel like a lot of its reveals really rely on like you having some pretty good knowledge of Warhammer. So I don't know how many, I don't know how like popular of an opinion that is, but I'd bring that over because I feel pretty strongly about the Space Marine 2 story.
Okay, yeah, let's bring that one over.
Do it. What about Unicorn Overlord? Like, how is the story of that? Is that strong in that?
Good. It's a Fire Emblem type story. You've got
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know your hero, and then there's the ridiculously evil guy who took over the empire and is now invading, and you have to build a
Yeah.
rebellion. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's similar to an ogre battle or a Fire Emblem type. I think it's a good story. My son finished. I actually asked him about it. He loves it. He thought it was a really epic conclusion to it, but it's hard to speak. All I have is secondhand knowledge of
Okay.
the last 2/3 of that game. I've only played about a third of that game. So, but I think it's worth like, kind of like you did with Star Wars Outlaws. It's like, hey, good nod there. I can't really fight for it though.
Yeah.
If we want to have it considered for real, I do think it's worth bringing over Plucky Squire just because the story's creative and the way they use the storybook.
It's
and all that
charming.
stuff.
Yeah, I think it is charming how
The
it
stories don't have to
plays.
be moving to be good. You can have a fun, lighthearted, even kid-friendly story, and it's like that was really good. Like that was a cool
Yeah.
little.
It's creative. It's
Creative.
really creative from all angles, like in all aspects. Like
Yeah, I also
Fun
want to throw
story.
out there, just kind of going out of order here to get some nominees in. I'm going to put Prince of Persia over. I think the Lost Crown storyline is actually pretty cool. Is it totally unique? No, and I'll talk more about it in a few minutes because I don't know if I can fight for it on the top 5, but it is a really cool narrative. Did either of you play enough Rise of the Ronin for that story? I like the opening of it, but I don't know
I
how
haven't
it
played it all
unfolds.
yet.
Yeah, I could get into that one.
I was actually hoping it was on sale these last few weeks because I was like, I had gift
Nah,
cards and stuff.
just-
I'm like, I
just-
can't.
You're free, Dan. Don't worry about it.
You don't need
can
it.
let this one. You can let this one slip through.
Dude, what's
It
on the
looks
plate for
fun.
2025? Just forget Rise of the Ronin exists. Man.
Just try.
You've
It's
got
a new year. It's a new year, man. We can't be playing these old games.
Rise of the Forgetting.
That's why we're talking about it now. Every game we mention, you have to forget about after today.
Yeah, this is
That's
the last time
ironic
you're
that-
ever allowed to talk about it again.
It's ironic that you're saying this because this past year we played a lot of old.
We played a
games,
lot
so-
of old games.
Yeah, but
I
that
know.
old, you know, at some point, you know, it reaches a half-life where it's not like last year old, it's just old.
It's just old.
Okay, sure.
I
Making up
agree.
rules on the fly, sure.
Nah, these are set in stone rules we've been following since the beginning of man.
Yeah, since the caveman times.
I wish I enjoyed the gameplay of Thaumaturge more, and maybe it does get better. But the setting of that is intriguing, very dark. But I didn't play the game enough to tell you the story. Echoes of Wisdom, it's a great way of giving you a new character to use and new powers. Story though, nah. Stories,
Yeah.
it's not even. It's whatever. It's a whatever story. It's everyone you love is captured, and you have to free them, and you do.
I
And
mean,
every- you know what
Zelda
I mean? Like,
stories are generally pretty. Like, there's not like anything too insane, you know?
right.
Like,
It sounds like maybe this one more so is maybe just relying a little more on like the I don't know, do the 5
The mechanics.
dungeons. Yeah, the mechanic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's very mechanic heavy. It's like they're experimenting. You know what? That's why I
Mhm.
liked it so much. It just charmed the shoes right off me. I loved Echoes of Wisdom as a video game.
It
Story
would
wise,
dominate a most charming list, that's for sure. Yeah.
oh yeah, we actually probably should add that as like just a for fun one. What games charmed you?
Yeah.
I don't think any of us played past probably that second town at the most in Hellblade 2 for Senua
Yeah,
Saga.
I'm sure that story is great. I just wish I cared. I just wish I cared.
I wish I could.
Here's
I
my
wish so
takeaway.
badly I cared. Yeah.
Here's my takeaway. Senua,
Continue.
she's having a hard time.
She's having a rough time of it. Yeah.
Having a hard time.
My recommendation, Senwa needs to maybe call her healthcare provider and figure out her mental health benefits, you know?
She needs-
Or we
she
get her
needs some help.
out to Maui, get some drinks in her.
Yeah,
get,
true.
Get some beach time. She needs to
Dude,
unwind a little
Maui's
bit.
wonderful. Maui's wonderful.
It's beautiful.
It's freaking beautiful.
Now, Dan, you finished Black Myth Wukong, right?
No, No, I have not. That's actually a surprisingly long game.
Yeah,
Okay.
I hear it's like upwards of 40 hours, like to beat that game.
Cool lore. Would you say it's got a really good story?
I mean,
From
the
what you
foundation
played?
of its story is one of the
Foundation?
oldest stories ever told.
Right.
You know,
Has
But
if we were just
Journey to the
ranking
West.
opening sequences, this would be in the top 5 for sure.
Mhm.
I think it's fun, and I think like Kyle was saying, the lore of it based off of ancient Chinese story is really
Yeah.
cool. But it's not like something where I'm like thinking about and like
the reveals. Whoa.
Like,
yeah.
right, yeah, like I can't believe this guy. It's like I don't know who this is. I don't know. I mean, there's like really cool characters that show up, and I'm like, this is like a really interesting character, and like what they're doing right now is cool. But yeah, I'd like.
Okay.
I'm not thinking about the story.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the campaign for Black Ops 6 is actually pretty freaking awesome. Now, does that mean
Yeah.
that it has a good story? I don't know. It doesn't have to have good reveals to be a good story. I was compelled to move through it. I wanted to find out what would happen. Maybe that's enough to give it a nod as, hey, that was.
Is it a good story or a fun story?
It's like Star Wars Outlaws, which I know most of
Yeah.
the story to, where it's like you've seen this before, but it's a really good version of stuff you've seen before. It's just really well done. It's very tight. It's very sharp. It's fun. Like the missions are super fun. They give you enough stakes without it feeling, super dumb with how big the stakes are. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good time, and then they have a nice little twist at the end as they reveal. Like I don't know. I do think there are certain missions that have in and of themselves these incredible stories. Like when you go to that experimental, almost like BioShock-esque creepy. You know what I'm talking about with like the mannequins that are following you around.
I literally haven't even touched the story yet. I just keep playing the damn multiplayer.
The multiplayer is excellent. And I mean, this is probably their
I played
best
the Squid
entry.
Game stuff last night for like 2
Yeah, I
hours.
was
The red
trying
light,
to
green
do that
light
too.
stuff. It was awesome.
Yeah. Hey guys, I think it's safe to say, regardless of the story part, Call of Duty is a good game this year.
Call of Duty
it's
it's
fun.
good.
It's a really good game this year, but not
last
the
year.
best story. But I wanted to give it a nod. Like the campaign is a really good time. I highly recommend
It's the
it.
best it's been in a long time.
But I put it in the same boat as like Star Wars Outlaws, maybe even what I've seen so far and how Dan described Stellar Blade in a way where it's like it's not going to do anything you haven't ever seen, but it's got enough that's really well done that it's worth calling out. I was like, hey, this is pretty good. I'll also say the setup for Flintlock Siege of Dawn was pretty fun. I like how that story opens, but it has not as bad as like an Outriders, but it has some of that AA quality to some of the characters and writing that does bring it down a couple notches. Frostpunk 2 is exactly what you expect. The world has become snowy and everyone's dying of cold. So it's very sad. And you have to make horrible decisions like, hey, we're running out of food. And all the elders have volunteered to wander off into the snow and die. So you have less people to feed. Do you let them...
they volunteered? Great.
Yeah.
You don't have to make any decisions?
Like,
that's awesome.
So either you say, no, stay here, and you use a lot more food than you have, and you like run low on food, or you go like, no, don't go, but go ahead and go. Go ahead and go. And then you become like hated though. Then people. So anyway,
honestly,
it's more about
the bleakness gives me like Attack on Titan vibes. But maybe that's just because I just finished it, and it's just there's a parallel there that I'm drawing that's not even really true. But
there is something to that
bleak.
because the attack comes from the weather. You get these blizzards that are going to come in, and you have to prepare for like the winter. Yeah, basically, the winter's coming. None of us played Life is Strange Double Exposure, right?
Yeah, which is a shame because I was really excited for that game.
I know.
Everyone just sucked the energy out of that game for me.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I don't think I talked to a single person who was like, I liked it. Like I couldn't even get that. You know, I heard a lot of like,
I heard a lot of weirdly mid reviews on it.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of people just kind of shrugging their shoulders and going like, yeah, I guess it was nice seeing her again. You know, and I'm like, I really needed bigger news.
Me too.
I guess. I really need. I needed to hear that like the story blew the socks off people. I guess.
I agree.
Not hearing that there weren't any like big major reveals on the level of like shocking wheelchair reveal from the first season. You know, like I don't know. That's what I'm there for, man.
Or the ending of that. It's one of those things.
I haven't heard anything about the ending of this. That's apparently how forgettable it is. Is no one's even talking about it. So like.
Really,
so that's a shame. Bummer. Yeah, maybe when it goes on sale for like $10, I'll snag it. But yeah, it's a shame.
Wait, you know what, Kyle? If I can't snag Rise of Ronin, you can't. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you're right. No, you're right. I have to live by the rules.
Obey your own rules.
That's right.
Obey your own rules.
Right.
Lise Fanga, the time shift warrior. I do want to say that the setup for that is really cool. The reason you have these time shifting powers, where multiple versions of you are taking out rooms of enemies and you have to work together with yourself. Not only is that a really cool gameplay mechanic, but the storyline for it is cool. But I can't tell you that the whole narrative start to finish is that intriguing. It's more of, and I've said this a lot, so I'm sorry for repeating myself. The setup of it is very cool. And so, but that doesn't mean that the whole story delivers. But again, the gameplay on that game is really interesting. The way they do that, I need to give that game another roll. It's a cool one. Mario and Luigi Brothers Ship. I don't think any of us played that. It also got really weirdly mid reviews because I thought it was going to be beloved, but I guess not as much. Stalker 2, Pacific Drive. I don't think any of us played these games enough to really give them a good story look, right?
I want to hard nominate. I just had it. Oh my gosh, where was it? Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. I thought the story was great in that game.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that was fantastic. Yeah, I thought it was so good. Another one where it's like, yeah, it's very anime tropey, kind of seen stuff before, but boy, it was just, I really like the way they deliver the story in that game.
Yeah, no,
very short and to the point too.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good call.
I just snapped that with my gift card, by the way.
All right, so the Cub, I played that through in like essentially one sitting on a Sunday with football on in the background, and just sat and played it. I actually really like what they do for that story, but I actually couldn't tell you what the story is outside of the fact that you are this kind of mutant kid who somehow survived, kind of like with wolves and nature and other kids like yourself, as everyone abandoned Earth because Earth was like dying. And so
he finds like a helmet.
He finds this helmet.
It's kind of like Horizon, where she finds out like
exactly.
He finds this thing,
and you hear the radio, and there's a bunch of original songs that were written for this. So you hear like some original music, and there's a radio person talking. So that part of it was intriguing. But like as far as what happens from start to finish, not really a whole lot. You're chased a lot, but you don't really change much. You just kind of discover what happened. So anyway, it's fine. And that's pretty much it for ones that I wanted to even give like a little tip of the cap to. Maybe I might be forgetting something, but okay. So there we go. We moved over. What is this? This is 13. No, this is 4. Whatever it is. It's 14 games. We got 14 games moved over that we want to consider. That's not bad. We want to narrow this down to 10, which should be pretty easy. And then the other 4 can go into honorable mentions. We don't have to rank them. This is just numbering. Like I just want to get an idea of like, hey, okay, we've got 10 here. So maybe I should get rid of this so I don't want us to think we're actually ranking them yet. And then we'll rank the final 5. So which ones of these are like, these have to be in our final 10 of these 14? Or you know what, let's do it the other way. What is something that you think can just go into the honorable mentions and the rest can, like, what's one that you would, and each of us can maybe nominate one and maybe we pick one together that you think can go in honorable mentions. Anything jump out at you?
Did any of us play enough with Nice Souls to say all of that story is great?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I'd say that's honorable mention.
Yeah.
I just played the demo, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
I mean, I liked the story. Maybe it would be in a top 10 or 5 for me, but Eiyuden Chronicles, I feel like I don't know if that carries enough weight to be in the final.
Right.
But I'm
gonna put it here for now. I am.
Yeah, I was gonna
say it, and I'm loving the story, but you finished it though, so.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna say it might have a better story than some of the other ones on this list, though. So it still might make it.
Yeah, but what you were saying about Stellar Blade, for example, Dan, would you keep Stellar Blade in the top 10 of overall game stories this year?
Yeah, like Stellar Blade is, I think, definitely. Yeah, I mean, you've seen like what they actually end up doing at the end is like fun, and it's like, oh, that's cool, and then like it's a nice setup for the second one. I think, like what they can kind of go from there. But yeah, you've definitely seen stuff like that in sci-fi centric stories. Like it's not anything where you're like, oh wow, that's like really crazy, like that's new, or like a really unique take on something that has existed before. It's like, no, you get it, you get what they're doing.
Okay.
So
that kind of sits here on the maybe list. Let's bring over the ones that all of us picked like right away. So let's put like Banishers and Final Fantasy and Metaphor over here. Okay, and like a Dragon we'll put over here. I think stuff like Neva and Indiana Jones are pretty safe to be in the top 10. I think. Do you guys agree with that?
Seems like you guys are all enjoying Indiana Jones, like surprisingly, which is
love
fun.
that story. Yeah, I'm gonna fight for that one. So, so I love that one. So yeah, then that leaves us with stuff like Plucky Squire, Prince of Persia, Space Marine 2. These are all ones that I don't think anyone sounded really convinced of that had to be in there. For me, Prince of Persia should make the cut, but probably not the final 5. But I do think it's a top 10 story this year. I'd put it on par with Eiyuden so far.
I thought the Veilguard story was fantastic, but I'm the only one who played it, so that's like my you know.
Yeah,
I think that's
end up lower in the list, you know, just because.
I think it's worth being in the top 10 though, for sure.
Yeah, because I'm still in like the first 4 or 5 hours of that. So
yeah. Maybe this is a good spot. This Plucky Squire go on honorable mentions, like as a story, as a narrative.
I didn't play it, so I can't.
Because Dan, you finished it, right? I finished it too.
Yeah, it's really endearing, and I like the whole play on like, well, first of all, the 2 different styles, and one of those styles being essentially real life, like, you know, this character pops out of a book and he's out in the real world, and I like
it
how
involves an author in the real world too, like
right, exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah. So and yeah, exactly. There's like kind of like an emotional element there of like, you know, the bad guy doing some bad guy stuff and how that changes things. And I just thought that was creative. I thought it was really, really creative and charming. But, you know, I look at some of these other stories and I'm like, did it like hit me? Did it make me like feel things? Like not nearly as much as some of these other ones.
Okay. If you had to pick between Stellar Blade and Plucky Squire, which one would you put higher, just out of curiosity? And same question, Kyle, for Space Marine 2 and Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. Ooh. Like, do you think they both deserve a spot in top 10? Like that's
no, probably one or the other, but ugh, God, what would that be?
Yeah,
I picked Stellar Blade slightly.
Stellar Blade over Plucky Squire.
And for me, Warhammer over Grand Blue, just because I think that the world building is really good, and Space Marines, even if you don't know like the lore, like you'll at least catch like, oh, there's like some weird stuff going on in this world.
Well, if I haven't, I'm like 12 hours into Eiyuden, so I played a bunch of it on Game Pass and then stopped, and I'm playing it on Steam because it's on Steam Deck and it's a great Steam Deck game, but I had to start over, so I'm just now past the point I got to before, so I'm still really early in that game. I can't fight for it. I just know I love what I'm seeing so far. And Dan, you've actually finished it, and they're saying maybe that's more of an honorable mention. I think that's worth bumping into the honorable mention section. Yeah, I think we probably want to fight for these other ones a little bit more.
Yeah, well, yeah, based off of like if we're doing a 5, then that's definitely not on there. But you know, if we were doing a 10, it'd be like, oh, well, that would be towards the bottom.
Okay, so if we did, tell you what, if we did, so that means we need to get one more down into honorable mentions from here.
I thought I chose Warhammer over Grand Blue. And
I didn't want to make you just kick it off, but
I got enough darlings. We don't have to.
I don't know anything about it.
I don't need to over darling me. Yeah, I got enough of my bullshit games up there.
That's fair. Yeah, so we've got our honorable mentions for best story this year officially are Nine Souls, The Plucky Squire, Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, and Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
You know what? Stellar Blade. Swap that out with Eiyuden Chronicle. All right.
Hey, there you go.
I feel much better because I've played.
I feel better about that too.
And I really liked,
I don't know why I wasn't thinking of that a second ago.
I played about the same amount of Stellar Blade and wasn't wowed by the story, which is like this is such a dumb way to like do it because I'm talking about the first.
That makes my heart
about the first like 4 hours about both of those games, and the story doesn't happen in the first 4 hours of either of those games.
Even just the build up to when you have the first big battle, and then the things happen, and you have that first like duel. I was like, man, this is a really compelling narrative they're putting together here. So
like I actually like my jaw dropped like in the last like there's something that happens in the last 5 hours of Eiyuden that like I was like, oh shit, like
moments are that's currency, man. That's currency for this particular round.
That's another category we'll have to.
Shit moment.
That's oh shit moments, yeah.
All right, and then so our top 10 without any kind of order to almost put them in alphabetical. Banishers, Dragon Age, Eiyuden, Rebirth, Indiana Jones, Like a Dragon, Metaphor, Neva, Prince of Persia, and Space Marine 2. Hey, that is a pretty good list of gaming stories from 2024.
It's all right.
It's not too shabby. All right, so You know what? I'm just gonna leave that so we can see it, and I'll repost it over here. There we go. So, as far as what goes into our top 5, so the next step is to separate basically split this list in half. Half of it stays in honorable mentions. The other half will go into our top 5 that we are then going to rank. So I'm going to give myself a little more space here. So what stays and what do we want to rank? And I have a feeling I already know.
Well, it sounds like Eiyuden Chronicles barely made it on.
So that's probably like staying here.
Probably on the lower 5, yeah.
The one that
Warhammer Space Marine 2, like lower for like I think as well, just because I'm the only one who played it, and story wise, it's great, but not fantastic, you know.
Okay. The only one that I really want to fight for, and I know it's only me that played it, is Banishers. Like, but
I'm here for it. I
love that story.
I played like 4 to 6 hours of it and liked everything. Okay. That I
story wise, especially of that game, because I know there's some legitimate gripes about how you traverse the open world, and some of the combat gets redundant. Very legitimate bashes on that game, even though I still think those things are
also things that were said about Vampire also. And guess what? I beat Vampire twice. I love that game. So
yeah, there you go.
I mean, it turns out, guys, Don't Nod knows how to tell a good story, which is maybe why Life is Strange follow-up isn't quite as good. They didn't handle that one.
That's true. Yeah. That is true.
Hey, this is best story category, so you know.
Yeah. So I want to fight for Banishers. I feel like you guys both feel the same way about Metaphor from what you've played of it. Kyle, you finished it. Dan, you're almost finished with it. Yep. I can't imagine either one of you would be okay. Like, this needs to be on the list. Yeah,
it'd be so funny if Dan finishes it and he's like, "I hated that."
I hate that. We all
get that refan garbage.
We all played and loved Rebirth. There's no doubt that's one of the best stories of the year, if not the best one of the year. I didn't play any of Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. Dan, did you play any of it?
No, but let's give it its flowers. Kyle deserves it.
Not only that, but like,
and I will fight for that over like Dragon Age when we're talking about like bringing Darling over. Yeah.
Okay, and the reason I also want to move it in, I actually did I tried to do a little bit of homework today. It was like a spoiler-free summary of what the story of this game is like, and some of the things that it does with some of the goofy side missions, as well as the way you make friends, and then the way it revisits the original Like a Dragon Heroes storyline and some of this. I didn't like get to the spoiler of some stuff that happens towards the end. Like, there's some just apparently, according to this person that gave a summary, unforgettable moments
I cried like 8 times during this game.
That's what I've heard.
Insane. Yeah.
I've heard it's
real ugly, like real ugly manly cries.
The uglier the better. The more points it gets.
Yeah, that story is fantastic, and just to speak a little more on it, the way that it toes its line, kind of like you were saying, of its goofiness, and then its immediate surrealness, and then immediate emotional punches and stuff like that, is just so good. Everyone gets a story. Every single character is fully fleshed out. Fan favorites from the game before who didn't get as much fleshing out got fleshed out in this game. It was just a really, really, really well done. Things get a little shaky. And some of the reveals, like, because like they're all these like giant conspiracies, and then like at some point it just kind of feels like everyone's in on it, and like you're like, I get it, but like the moment to moment story stuff and the overarching story is very, very, very good. And I like it a lot, and I just like all the little world building stuff. Again, like they have narrative reasons for why everything is goofy, so it's like. Like, Kiru's like dying of cancer, so it's like he kind of like he sees the world differently, like because like
okay.
And
so that's why he's like riding dolphins and shit. Like,
well, that's the other guy. Ichiban is like a crazy.
Ichiban's the crazy one, and then the old hero is
the way that he sees things is he's a major Dragon Quest fan. He grew up playing Dragon Quest, and like
I love that
he sees everything through that like filter or whatever. Yeah. And like you don't need to explain that stuff, and they do. And it's just good. It's just good stuff, man. Just good wholesome stuff.
It's interesting. These 4 that we are certainly in our top 5 somewhere. It's not necessarily because the plot is that good, and in some cases the plot is good. But it's mostly about the characters that make the story really good. Yeah. Characters I care about. Now whatever happens in the plot means a lot more, and so it just elevates all of it. And so like Banishers, Metaphor, and I know with Metaphor, a big part of the story, even from my short time with the prologue, as well as what you guys have said and what the reviews have said, all about character and relationship building and the bonding that happens. Same with Rebirth. It's so character centric. I mean, they made me care about Kate Sith, and who cares about Kate Sith in the
I
original?
never cared about Kate Sith until now.
And that's true of like all the characters. I care about all of them more than I did before. Same thing what you're saying with Like a Dragon. And that is why I would recommend that our 5th game that makes it on this list, and I actually wouldn't care where it finishes. If it finishes 1, I'm happy. If it finishes 5, I'm happy. It would be Indiana Jones, because I think they tell such a good story in this universe, and it's all about the characters. The character of Indiana Jones is believable. He's so
I think like story also means writing, and the writing in this is so good. It's so outstanding, you know. Whereas like when you look at some of the others on this list, never really doesn't have like it has writing, but there's not a lot of dialogue, you know.
No dialogue.
It's not like Prince of Persia, you know, like I'm sure it's telling a pretty interesting story, but like it's more you know, the game's more about mechanics and stuff.
So that's the thing about like Prince of Persia, it's very on the nose. Here's what's happening. Here's what we have to do. Now there's some cool reveals, but like it doesn't have like Indiana Jones. I feel like I'm watching a movie series. I was gonna say a movie, but it's so much longer than a movie. So like I feel like I'm watching a brand new movie trilogy with this game.
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely loving it. The villain. There's a sequence in Egypt. Have you gone to Egypt yet, Kyle?
I have not. No.
Okay.
I think I'm about to. I'm about to leave Vatican City.
There's a sequence in Egypt that involves the villain and Indy and another kind of sidekick character that you connect with more over time. A little bit in the Vatican, and then a lot more in the next 2 sections. And that whole sequence is so funny while being action-packed, and like lives are on the line, but it's so like tongue-in-cheek. It's just perfect Indiana Jones of like them kind of both looking and seeing the gun, looking at each other, and then they dive for it. It's those kind of moments where someone actually reaches back and accidentally elbows someone in the nose and breaks their nose. But it was a bad guy, so that's a good thing. You know, it's little things like that are just the way they tell the story with physical and dialogue is brilliant. So I would recommend that, and I'm recommending that over 2 games that I love the story of. Prince of Persia tells a really cool story, lots of cool time travel stuff, especially kind of there's a huge climax moment that then sends you into the final act of the game. It's really just the climax of the second act. And as you get into the final act of the game, you get to unlock new powers, and the powers are all very story centric too, which is very cool in my opinion. But there is a boss fight that you lose, and it throws you into the whole new section of the game. Then things happen, and you re-engage in that boss fight with yourself, and now you're teaming up with your past self to fight, but you're much more powered up. It's so cool. It's so well done, but it's nowhere near as like doesn't have the same charm or connection to characters as Indiana Jones. And then Neva tells a beautiful silent story.
Right.
Do you guys are you going to finish that game? Do you think?
Yeah, I probably will. I played the first hour of it today.
Then I won't tell you what happens, but there is a very cool. I mean, it's obviously all about, connection to nature, and there's an animal connection, there's nature connection, there's protecting it.
It's very Princess Mononoke. If you've ever seen that anime, like she's like a woman of the forest, and like lots of giant deers with like floral antlers, and it's very that. Yeah.
But there's a cyclical nature to this, and as you get through, it gets darker and darker and darker, and then everything circles back around, and it's I won't say exactly what happens, but it's just really beautifully done the way that it all wraps up, and so I do think it is a wonderfully told silent story, worthy of the honorable mention section for sure. And what about Dragon Age? Anything else you want? I know you loved that story. Is that worth?
It's a great story.
Fighting over Indiana Jones with?
No, I feel like Indiana Jones has the better writing out of the 2. You know, there's a lot of dialogue in Dragon Age, so there's a lot of opportunities to just be like, oh, that wasn't, that felt like fan fiction right there. But overall, the story's epic. You're killing gods. The odds are against you. Things get very Mass Effect 2 by the end of it, where you're like, we're all probably not going to make it out of this, and you have to like really make decisions that end up like killing characters off if you make the wrong decisions. There's some places where no matter what characters are going to die, you just kind of have to choose which one, but you don't really know what choice you're making. The stakes are very high. There's a lot going on in that game. It was a busy year for stories in video games, and I mean that's just how it shakes out sometimes.
All right, so that puts us at honorable mentions for best story of the year being Eiyuden Chronicle, 100 Heroes, Warhammer 40K, Space Marine 2, Neva, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Dragon Age: The Veilguard, And when you connect those with our other honorable mentions, we've got things like Nine Souls, Puggy Squire, Stellar Blade, and all these others. If you're watching on video, listed above. No, these are the 10. It's these 5
those,
are
yeah.
honorable mentions. Yeah. So there you go. So there's our top 5 list. We just need to get it ranked now. I'll open it up to either of you guys. Do you have a gut feeling on any particular ranking spot for any of these games? Based on, again, trying to share where 3 of us will all collide with some of these things. What do you think?
Well, the only 2 I can even speak to at all would be Rebirth and Metaphor, because I haven't played the other 3, unfortunately. But I mean, I'm liking what I hear of the other ones, and especially Banisher too, Tim, because you had spoke about that like quite a few times over the months. So that one, that's like a fun surprise, something that's just like a new IP. This just new
it's double A.
game.
It's not, it's not this big known IP or anything like that. Yeah, it's a celebration of the little guy.
Yeah, exactly. Love the little guys. But I mean, I can only speak to 2 of them. So
okay, I think based on who's championing what, it seems to me like Banishers and Like a Dragon are probably 4 and 5. It doesn't matter to me which order, but that's probably where they are. I think both of us love those. You probably love Like a Dragon, Mark, you played more of those games, but we both are adamantly supporting those for best story of the year. But we're the only ones who played them at all.
That makes sense.
So, but between Banishers and Like a Dragon, I think if we had to do, and this is really easy to do because Like a Dragon has like universally better scores. So I'll just give that the slight edge just because of its general public reception. Banishers, I think, I'm just so happy it's on the list at all. It's been criminally overlooked this year. And it's one of those things where it makes you kind of sad because you're like, hey, it was a 80 something average on Open, I think like an 81 average on Open Critic or something
really
like that.
Good.
Yeah,
especially for a game, especially with a game that's like has a lot of like, I don't know, agreed upon like middle of the ground like combat and stuff like that. It still has like an 81, like people, I guess the story really stuck that much with people.
That's right.
Where they were willing to not excuse but like overlook or maybe look past like some of the smaller qualities of the game. But I don't know, man. I have it still installed. I'm definitely gonna go back to that game and play it.
I will say it is a heavier story, and I think a lot of these have heavier moments in different ways. Each of them do, and we'll get to some of those. But it is a heavy story about death and loss, and then also like to what degree are you willing to sacrifice what you know is probably right because of someone that you love, and it really challenges that question because it makes you. I mean, you will if you play this game with any kind of focus or paying attention to the dialogue and the characters, you're going to absolutely love the main 2 characters. And you're going to hate what is keeping them apart from each other. And so you're going to want to do what you can to keep them together. And of course, the game forces a number of moments where you have to decide some things. But they also have a cool oath system where you have to make an oath of either I'm going to go down this path or go down that path. And you're challenged a few times throughout it. Like, are you going to stick to that oath or are you about to break it? So there's a cool system there too for that. And I think it sounds like a Dragon balances out its wackiness with its really heartfelt moments in an incredible
way. And that was
way.
I think I put like 95 hours into that game, and I don't dilly dally. I don't leave consoles on. Like those are real hours.
Those are gameplay hours.
To like keep a story at that level of engagement. You could say the same with this for Final Fantasy as well, because it's a pretty long game. And to keep that and like Metaphor. Level of like and Metaphor, absolutely, yeah, very much so. To keep that level of engagement where you're like, I still all these hours later care about what happens next. Yeah, it's got to be so hard. It's gonna be so hard to keep that much like good writing going for that long.
Yeah, I agree. Sure.
Even Indiana Jones, like these are not like that type of story is not really. We haven't seen a long form version of a story of an Indiana Jones story before. You know what I mean? So it's like they had to really. Not only by capturing the movie and the tone and everything of that, they had to figure out a way to stretch it out and not make it boring or anything like that. So it's just huge hats off to these people who are just rocking writing right now.
I totally agree. I think these other 3, they all share some similarities. Like obviously the settings are incredibly different, and like even like the way they talk about each other and the worlds, of course, are polar opposite. Like in Metaphor, you're gonna have a whole mission I've heard about where it's all about getting to the anus. Is that really a mission?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because it's we've talked
Speaking
about
of
before.
holes.
Like it's
Yeah.
very I think that was actually one of the whole nominees. That's where I heard about that. But of course, that's not because it's necessarily, from what I could tell, played for laughs. Although it probably is.
No, not really. No.
It is like that game's monsters are called humans. It's a whole thing, and so like there's a reason for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I do think all three of these have a good combination between character building. They're going to open it up and let you try a lot of different things, and you can spend time doing a lot of non-main storyline things in those worlds, depending on how much you're enjoying it. Like if you are loving exploring some of these areas in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, you can spend dozens and dozens and dozens of hours exploring, meeting new characters, doing more side missions, getting all the secrets. And same with Indiana Jones. It's not nearly as expansive, but it still has some pretty large areas with lots of optional stuff to do. And it sounds like Metaphor is the same. So they all have very similar strengths. I don't think any one of these, based on what I've heard about Metaphor and what I know about the other two, is, in my opinion, leaps and bounds above the other ones. All that being said, it does seem to me that Rebirth would be the obvious number one because all three of us played it and really enjoyed the story a lot. So, but I don't want to step on any toes with Metaphor though.
That has been the most conflicting as I'm reaching the end of Metaphor, because I still have some time. So I don't, Kyle knows how many more twists they might throw my way. Yeah, it's just I just been going back and forth basically. Like, do I like Metaphor more than Rebirth? I'm trying not to be like a fanboy about him. I'm trying to be objective. Like, which one do I like more? Because story is the most. This is the most important important category to me, because story is the most important thing for me in video games. So, I do really actually love the way that Rebirth ended, and I know that's very it's very divisive or divisive, however people want to say it.
I think that's a great ending. Yeah.
Because
it's
actually, not super clear, because they know there's more story to tell, which makes me a little more at peace with it, because it isn't super clear. Like there's a lot of really good theories about what exactly happened and is going to happen.
Well, yeah, and that's why it's divisive, because people don't like that.
I think when you're retelling a story, you got to take some chances, and this was them, to me, proving that they're willing to take some chances with their story going forward. Now, whether or not it ends up being like a big swing payoff, who knows? I think they're gonna do fine. This story does seem very confident to me, and everything that they've added, subtracted, rearranged, remixed, whatever, for me, has all felt very good. And again, like the easy way would just be to just remake the game the way it was, exactly frame for frame.
They would have been done already.
And they didn't do that. So,
right.
I think I thought about this, and it's like when you think back to OG7, and at the end of Disc 1, when you're at the City of the Ancients, which is where this game ends, and you get to that moment, like. What it made people do back then, like the shock and like everyone talking about it, like, can you believe, like, did you get to this part? Like, can you believe this happened? And like, isn't that kind of basically the same thing that happened here? Where wasn't everybody basically also shocked and talking? Like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's just some people, are just so adamant about being stuck in their ways and their thoughts and feelings and opinions. But they succeeded in doing the same thing, just in a different way.
Buzz, so, even in the reviews, like review to review, people, I like the ending, I hated the ending, I like the changes, hated the changes. It is divisive.
But generally speaking, universally loved. Like, I know people now are looking at it with more of a critical eye, and as people are doing their rankings and stuff, they're kind of writing it off a little more easily because, super popular, everyone loves it, it's easier to crap on it. I get it.
Sure.
But this game has a 93 average or 92 average.
Yeah, we could sit here and have revisionist history all day, but like 93 is insane. That's an insane score.
And all of us played it. All of us loved it.
Yeah.
And that's true of, like, there's always going to be little qualms we have with moments in the game here or there, whatever it is. But top to bottom, this story experience and the character experience for me was just top notch. And so I have no issues with it at all ending. Like, I prefer a story that has more clarity. I do. Like, that's why I lean towards something like Banishers and Indiana Jones. If I were ranking this, I'd probably slightly rank those ahead of it, just because I am having more fun with and can wrap my head around more those kinds of stories and
Right.
through lines, and I process them more easily. But the creativity and the high production values and the characters in Rebirth, undeniable. I think that one belongs at the top. And then really it comes down to figuring out between Indiana Jones and Metaphor. Yeah, Kyle, you finished one, and the other one you're about a third of the way through ish. So, what's your gut so far?
Metaphor is my favorite story of the year.
Oh, it's your number one story of the year.
Yeah. I'm happy with Final Fantasy being number one though.
What do you what? Because Dan's on the fence. So what? And for me, Rebirth would have finished like third on this. So I'm just curious, what case would you make for that one to be number one? Because I think Dan's probably going to agree with you. He's played most of it.
I mean, ultimately, we know that Final Fantasy Rebirth is a second part of a story, a second act of a 3-act thing or whatever. Metaphor is the complete story, so it is a beginning, middle, and end. It is not something that ends with like head scratching or like what does it mean or anything. Like it's all there. It's so I would say in a complete package sense in terms of story, even though I would say that like in terms of like I feel like they really nailed down an arc like in Final Fantasy Rebirth, and like that arc came to its completion or whatever, and that arc felt good, and where it ended felt good, and like so it's no knock to like it, but like it kind of goes back to like when people like argue what's better, Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back. Like Star Wars feels like a complete movie, where Empire Strikes Back kind of just feels like half of a movie. It ends like with Han Solo being taken, and like you kind of have to like wrap up that movie in the first act of Jedi, so it's like, but everyone loves Empire, but like there are story caveats because it has to kind of tell its story across the two movies. So I guess that would be my thing, but also Metaphor wasn't played by you very much, Tim, so it's like the shared number one, regardless, even if I just swayed Dan right now for Metaphor, like it still wouldn't feel exactly right at being number one because it's not our collective number one.
It's very close for me. It's not like
which says a lot for Metaphor, by the way, the fact that it's
right. Exactly. And that's what I meant more like with being conflicted, because I've been kind of going back and forth, and I'm trying to think, because these are both such long games, so it's like I try to like
what happened
through them. Kind of like sift through the memories. I'm like, what the hell happened back in like hours 1 through 10, and then 20 through, so on and so forth. So it's like, because like I'm at a moment where something like, so a big like moment happened a few hours ago, and they were showing like they were doing like kind of like a flashbacky thing to like the very beginning of the game. I was like, oh right, like these people, like it's like I literally forgot about, because it's like you get to a place and you're like, I'm pretty sure I know these people, and then like flashbacks happen. You're like, oh right, okay, so that's just the how it is with longer games, but I don't know, like it's very close. It's very close. There's a lot of great moments in both of the games. I think just for me, Rebirth is just slightly edges out.
Rebirth, you get spectacle, which like you don't really get that in Persona games and stuff. I know that's kind of crazy to say when you're talking about how stylized that, but like I like those big giant like, world-ending moment where you're traveling through the live stream and stuff like that. Like there's no like big CG moment like in Metaphor that like really hits you over the face in a very Final Fantasy way. But that's not the type of game it is either.
I was also thinking back with Rebirth at what are the moments that stand out to me, and there's so many. Everything from doing the soldier march routine and like preparing for that to of course when you're playing all the mini games and the golden, what's it called, the
saucer.
Gold saucer.
The gold saucer, to when you first get to that, even at the beginning of the game, that first open world area where you realize you can kind of go any direction and do missions, and like, whoa, this is
Breath of the Wild moment.
Is this an open world game? What the heck? Like all these little moments that just stand out to me, all the way up through the end where you start to get to these key finales that are kicking in, or the moment when you get the chocobo and you start bouncing across these huge flowers and you're flying really far, and it's like, what
dashing around like a lunatic
game? Or running up the wall, it's like there's all these cool things, like these moment to moment things that happen, getting
characters also popping in that like, because they're taking into consideration the entire like catalog of like the universe of 7. So like Cisne, which is a character that I don't think Tim is definitely familiar with. Kyle, you might be familiar with. She's the redhead. Okay, but she's from Crisis Core.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's the
no, I
redhead.
wouldn't remember that name. I know who you're
Yeah.
talking about.
But like she's there, you know, like she pops up because she's like is part of the whole overarching. Like she's in the story. She's part of the world and the lore of this series.
Well, and even just name dropping jargon from like the movies and stuff like that. Like who knows? Like we may even get like cutscenes from Dirge of Cerberus in the next game when we hang out with Vincent Moore.
All right,
you know,
Kyle, let's not go there. Let's not go.
Stan, as the person who likes all Final Fantasy games, even Dirge of Cerberus.
Listen, let's not dirge it up, all right? Let's not dirge it up. Yeah, no, that's true. They probably will in some way, I'm sure.
It's all on the table, yeah. And it is interesting how they want to sneak it all in, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like they do it. They're doing it in a really nice, precise way. That because like obviously jokes aside, like Dirge is I think not really looked at favorably overall. But
yeah,
like,
I don't remember it having a lot of fanfare. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's enemies and like a villain that like from Dirge that has popped up.
Yeah.
But like they're just portrayed in a way that seems more serious. Because you look at Dirge and you're like, this is goofy as all hell. But then
Dirge had some weird vibe problems for sure.
Yeah, it had a weird goofy vibe about it. But like these characters pop up in like remake and the DLC and rebirth and all that, and it feels more serious, not like overly serious or anything. There's just a better tone to it, I think, the way that they've portrayed it. So but yeah, I don't know, but Metaphor is also pretty great. They do a really it's fine.
I mean, we haven't so really Banisher's number one, we decided.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna bring up Neva. That's what we're gonna do.
Like we haven't really gotten into the nitty gritty with because Metaphor is it's an RPG. The story is very important. It's very heavy. There's a lot of
it's very heavy. It's got some very fantastical reveals. You know, the thing about Final Fantasy and Metaphor is that they both are kind of like road trip movies or road trip stories. You know, you are kind of like going around the globe and hitting different areas, and in those towns they have their own kind of vignette stories. You know. They have a similar structure in terms of that in that particular way. They also have a very good villain that you want to kill bad, you know. Like it's like I'm not saying Luis is as cool as Sephiroth, but like they both do their work to like make you go, let's get this guy, you know.
But they're also both beautiful pieces of shit.
They are like beautiful white/blonde haired,
yeah. Just absolute monsters.
So I there are some parallels, and they're both JRPGs. I mean, there are some parallels there that are just unmistakable. But
and I do actually think that Metaphor does, and I know that this gets into like, you know, with some people out there, ooh, the DI and all that stuff, but like I think that they handle the whole, like, because racism it's like there's tribes in this game. They call them tribes. That's right
from the jump of that game.
Class, the concept of race and class, all the different people that exist. It's very prominent throughout the entire thing, I think they do it very well. I think the moments,
it's not preachy. That's why.
Right.
The game is not preachy at all. It's just all those elements are present and they're handled very well. The game is not telling you how to feel about anything, you know, and maybe there's other games this year may not have handled that as well. But Metaphor, I just like, especially for a Japanese developer and Japanese director, Japanese writer, and like they nailed some things about democracy in Western culture so perfectly, you know, and I'm like, boy, is it clear on the outside looking in? You know,
oftentimes it is.
Than it is on the inside. Yeah,
oftentimes it is.
The politics stuff in this game is so heavy. The race thing is very heavy, but it's all done very well. It's really very impressive.
Yeah.
When it comes to lead characters, even the little I saw from the lead and Metaphor, a little more dynamic, of course, than Cloud. But there is something about Cloud's constant, like, overthinking, and yes, he is smoldering a lot as he just kind of stands there. That's what he does. But I don't know. They do a good job of. I think, highlighting his flaws and how those play into how
He's a-
Sephiroth manipulates him.
He's a deeper character than the protagonist in Metaphor. You know, the thing about the Persona games is that your character is kind of always a blank slate for you to imprint
Right.
on,
Yeah.
and like that, and that's
Cloud's-
kind of the
Cloud's
same
an
with
established character.
like,
Like
Cloud's an
you're
established
playing as
character,
him,
but they've also gone out of their way to add more depth to him, and like I don't know, like they did a really good job of like showcasing his inner turmoil and anxieties
Yeah.
and stuff like that, in a way that's like your character in Metaphor, all the characters around you are flawed, but like your character is like unwavering good
Perfect.
guy. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like he's such a perfect bro. You know, like he does nothing.
He's there to
wrong.
hold
He's-
everybody up and lift
He's
them
never
up. You know?
flustered. He's never so like that doesn't make him
Whereas
interesting.
Cloud almost kills some friends. in
Yeah,
this.
Cloud like
So-
kind of Cloud's a
Yeah.
weirdo in this game.
He does.
man.
It's-
He
it's so
literally
weird.
sword gets like this close to Nick. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it's pretty
yeah.
close.
Yeah, and they're still
Um,
like, "Oh, Cloud, you know,
Yeah. You
They're not
okay
like,
now?
we're done with this. You're
Yeah.
going to therapy, buddy." You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, they don't want to yell at the
someone
basket
needs to be
case.
the
You know?
adult.
Yeah.
Although
I-
at one point Barrett like does kind of like he punches him, right? Doesn't he kind of punch him? If
Yeah,
I
think
recall,
Barrett
remember.
knocks him out of it. Yeah.
I think he punched him at one point. Like
listen, there are points when Cloud deserves that in that game.
Yeah.
sure, but I mean, well, again, to be fair, it's not his fault at all.
I don't remember
because-
course.
who I am. I think.
But
I'm
of course, when
someone
you-
else.
When you don't when you don't know that and someone's acting that way, sometimes it's like, all right, gotta snap
Right.
out of it somehow. So,
Yeah, and the cool thing about both of these games as well, to add more parallels to make is that the supporting cast is amazing in both of these games. You know,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
like
yeah.
you
That's true.
are in love with all these people that you're parading around with, especially in Final Fantasy VII. You're talking about like the most classic lineup of characters there ever was, and then of course as Tim brought up, making you care about characters that no one cared about, and making you excited for characters we're going to get more of, with Sid and Vincent
That's right.
next game. So it's like,
And I do think they
do a
handled
good job.
Barrett's background story really well. And
Barrett
I
was
loved that.
so cool in this game, man. Yeah, he's so
Yeah.
great.
I loved that.
Everyone gets their flowers, man. It's just good stuff.
Just
Yeah,
for the
what's
sake of
surprisingly, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead. Dave.
I was just gonna say because we're talking of characters, like
Yeah.
Yuffie, dude. Like
Yeah.
talk about
she's a great
characters.
example. Yeah, like I
of, like,
actually
not-
enjoyed having her around for the first
Yeah,
time.
like not giving a crap back in the day because she was an optional character. You could literally beat the game and not
Mhm.
have Yuffie in your party. And
she's
and
so
that's-
integral to everything now. Like
Yeah,
it's so interesting how they injected her into the story in the
Yeah.
way that they did.
And I care for her because especially the DLC because of like how the DLC ends and like what all of that means and
Mhm.
yeah, leading into this and her just having like a fully fleshed out personality because well, I mean, this is a modern game and there's voice acting and everybody has personalities, so
But mark it against Final Fantasy, Red 13's real voice. So obviously it's number 5. Obviously,
I gotta tell you, the voice
Listen.
switch I did not
listen.
care for.
Listen, he's a
I
cool teen. He's a cool
hated
teen.
it. No, he's not. There's nothing cool about him. No, he is.
He's a cool teen.
I would have died with that secret if I were him. Like I made up this cool voice. This is just who I am now. No, I did not. I don't even know. Like, was that even a reveal in the first game? Like, where he's like, actually, guys, I'm like,
Yes, you just don't hear the
Well,
voice.
yeah,
So
okay, all right.
yeah, in the first game, no, because it's the whole thing is like he's portraying himself as because of what his race is. Like
Yeah.
he's what 40, 50 years. He's lived for like 40, 50 years, but
Yeah.
like
He's
it's like
young.
it's like
There's
dog
still-
and cat.
It's like
yeah,
Baby
he's like
Yoda.
a
It's like
teenager.
Grogu.
But like
he's
you do
50,
learn
but
his
still
name
top.
in the original game, right? Like I feel like I knew that.
Nanaki, yeah, you learned that it was Nanaki.
And so
yeah.
you learn like there's more to him, and like
In
he's got
your
a family in the
8-year-old brain,
background.
when you were playing this game for the first time, though, were you like, "Hey, I'm Red 90," or whatever he sounds like? Like that's not like that's
No,
not.
It makes sense, but yeah, I get why people are kind of like, wait
Yeah,
a minute, wait a minute.
it makes sense, but so maybe it's a actor problem then. Maybe it's a voice actor problem.
No,
Which
it's
would
just
be
it's just-
unique for Rebirth because most of the voice actors in that game. were
Yeah,
really
and his
good.
voice acting's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
bad. It's just like that's not what I want him to sound.
It's not the
like.
sound that
He's
I want.
doing a
Yeah.
good job at sounding like a pubescent, annoying teenager. But like you nailed that. I just don't want that character sounding that way.
I liked his gruff, no nonsense, everything annoys me.
Me too. He had a
personality,
scar
man.
on his face, man. You don't talk like that when you have a scar on your face. That's not.
I
allowed.
wonder if in part 3 they'll do something like almost I don't know, like people were very jarred by that.
I
I
feel
didn't
like
like it.
it would.
You weren't at all, Dan. Dan, you got to be honest. beat.
It was jarring, but I didn't like. To me, it was just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. He's a teenager.
That's because you just like whatever they do. You don't care.
No, unless it's Dirge or Cerberus or a Theatrhythm.
Oh yeah, no, if it's sure, or 13
or 13.
All right,
or 13-2 or 13-3.
Exactly.
I think the tiebreaker really probably does come down to the fact that it's in the top at least 3 for all of us. It's probably Dan and Kyle's number 2, maybe number 1, depending on the day you ask Dan. It's Kyle. It sounds like it is your number 2 story of the year.
No, it's actually pretty down low for me on story.
Oh, Rebirth?
Yeah.
Is
like Dragon Age is above it for me.
Oh wow!
But I know how to play nice. You know, I'm not. I know where to put hand early. He knows. I know where to put the fights up. You know.
Yeah, he knows there's 3 episodes of this coming up.
Wow, Dragon Age over 7, huh?
I mean, Dragon Age is story the video game. Like it's 90 hours of story with some combat in it every once in a while.
With some combat. Yeah.
I mean, I've got it right now as my 3rd favorite story of the year.
Yeah, it's probably like fourth for me.
Okay. Yeah, it's not bad.
But like again, like I loved this story, you know. So it's not like I just like a dragon. I just have a lot more attachment to that series, you know.
So I mean, it's as simple as this. I've got Final Fantasy over Metaphor, and that's based off a very small sample size, admittedly, for Metaphor. So don't judge me too harshly. Kyle's got Metaphor over Final Fantasy. Dan, it comes down to you as the tiebreaker, man.
I don't think they're. I mean, unless we need to do this, I really do think Final Fantasy is number 1. You know, but for our collective,
Rebirth for me again, it does edge out Metaphor, but it's incredibly close. So
yeah, I think for me this whole list is pretty close. This whole top 5
same,
close. Based on what you guys have said about the games I haven't played as well. So.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fight about Dragon Age and Final Fantasy when y'all are sneaking like a dragon on here for me. Like that's can't be too selfish.
Listen, we're like 8 games in, all right? Clearly, this is a great series. Like,
they're doing something all right, I guess.
Yeah, they're doing something right. Yeah.
Well, that gives us our best story of 2024 in video gaming. Number 5 is Banishers. Number 4 is Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. Number 3 is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Number 2 is Metaphor ReFantazio. And number 1, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, is our pick by a hair for best story of the year. Great games all around. And our honorable mentions are also excellent.
That's a great,
Aid and Chronicle.
These 10 games this year, you're having a good time with stories for sure.
Totally agree. All right. Well, that does it for our first ranking. Everyone stretch. Everyone take a minute. There you go. All right, I'm good. My beer's almost gone. I've been nursing it slowly because I didn't want it to be totally gone yet. But
gotta fill it with more foam. Go get some.
I gotta switch to water. Gotta be a good boy.
Dude, I want to see Tim get slaughtered.
I don't care what
you guys don't appreciate Banishers, you know.
Just starts knocking shit over.
Well, our next non-ranked list, just things that we enjoyed, it's been a category for the last 8 or so, 9 years that I've done this, and that is Swimming in Sevens. What are the games that didn't get an 80 or above on OpenCritic or Metacritic, whichever one you like to use, but you still really liked it, and it was in 79 or below, but it's on your list of some of your favorites. Now, you don't have to rank these necessarily. I've got a list of some of these that did not rank above 80, but boy, did I really have a good time with them. I think I've got really 2 that I've spent a lot of time with, and then maybe like 5 that I think are worth just calling out that I thought
you can actually participate with these. So,
well, Dan, why don't you kick us off? Well, just give us one. We'll just kind of just take turns. Maybe let's do like 3 to 5, depending on how many you've got.
Because I got 5 here. So.
Okay, all right. So let's try to stick to 5-ish if you've got them. But Dan, what's one on your list? If you have them ranked, especially, you can start with number 5.
I just put them in order of like what the Metacritic score is.
Okay. Fair. Yeah.
And the one at the bottom there is Star Wars Outlaws.
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars Outlaws, which is sitting at 75. Yeah. And that game's fun. It's a fun game.
Fun. Yeah.
Fun.
I hate that we're doing this, but I do it too. Like it's okay.
Yeah, the octave goes up
because it does feel kind of gross to like celebrate Ubisoft and everything. So it's like I feel like you have to kind of like it's all right. Yeah, it's good stuff.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
I think the thing for me, because obviously between the three of us, I'm the least biggest Star Wars fan. I'm a casual Star Wars fan. I think what I appreciate about this game, I'm very much just like, listen, guys, like a lot of you Star Wars fans are like, give me a movie about like that droid over there, like, and I'm like, I don't give a shit about that droid. Give me lightsabers, guys. Like, I just want lightsaber battles. Like, I want the cool shit. But this game is not that. This is literally a bounty hunter, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's a bounty hunter. So
you
made a whole game
on
about
its
a bounty hunter.
terms. You know what I mean? This is on my list as well, so I'll just go ahead and give my thoughts on it too. You can't play the game as if it's something that it's not. You can't play it like Republic Commando. You can't play it like a Jedi. You are a smuggler, and you're trying to use the environment and the thing and your little friend.
Smuggler, not bounty.
Yeah, smuggler. Sorry, I said yes whenever you're like, you're a bounty hunter. I go, yep.
Well, that's actually a good point. Like, you're not a bounty hunter, so you don't have a full.
Yeah, you're right. You're more of a smuggler, and like it is a Han Solo-esque game, but like even it's more on the sneaky side. Like Han Solo's
kind of blow up something next to a guy to knock him and his friends out, distract them, and then sneak around over here and rob them and then get out. Like, it's more that. And if you try to play it differently, there's ways that it kind of lets you. It's not as satisfying. It doesn't really play, in my opinion, amazing as a straight up guns blasting third person cover based shooter. It plays fine in that respect.
It's all there.
It's adequate. It's above average in that space.
It's not reinventing the wheel, and it's not going to be remembered for it. So
it's better when you like see a place, you map it out, you find the entrance you want to go for, you find the enemies you want to take out quietly, you find the ones you want to use your like essentially your red eye, a thing that you can do to like. If you start using those skills, using nicks, using the environment, it can become a really fun game. It's how you approach it. And so I think the reason it landed in the 70s, in my opinion, some reviewers, number one, it's Ubisoft. They already come up with some baggage to those kind of games. But, number two, I think some people just don't like to play games how they're created. The game sometimes gives you too many options, and so you'll try the option that you think you want to play as. And I almost think that it can hurt the game because it's like, they let you go on guns blazing, but boy, do I not recommend it. Like,
I kind of feel like it likens itself to another Ubisoft title, like Splinter Cell. Like Splinter Cell really wants you to play the game how it wants you to play. It wants you to use all the gadgets. It wants you to go at a particular pace. It wants you to go, and I think that's a really good parallel for that. And I think if you're starting Splinter Cell, but you're expecting Call of Duty or something like that, like you're gonna be let down, and maybe that's what happened here. I don't really know. This game ended up in my top 10. I really like Outlaws a lot. I think it's got plenty of flaws, but like I think that like its open worlds are amazing. I think there's some of the funnest areas I've explored in a while, and the way that it allows you to explore, and the way that it doesn't over pollute the map, and the way that it feels organic, and the way that you're stumbling across stuff, and just the topography of everything, and the way everything's set out, and how different every level is. I liked all that stuff, and you get plenty of new stuff, and then you get Tatooine, which is just nostalgia of the planet, So the game does a really good job of like drip feeding you the stuff that you want, but also reminding you that like Star Wars doesn't have to be the thing that we expect it to be. It can be something else sometimes. Every once in a while, it can be.
I agree, man.
It could be something else. Yeah.
Yep, totally agree. So that one's one of my Swimmin' in Sevens too. Since you already picked that one, I'll name another one. And this is by far my favorite Swimmin' in Sevens games, and that's Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, which is at a 77.
I have that too.
So it is a wonderful homage to the Suikoden games. So much is taken directly from that series. Some of it to its detriment because it's still some old school systems in some ways that can bog down the experience and require like a lot of backtracking or grinding. And I totally get if that's not what you want to do. Like if this game released in the early 2000s, you'd probably give a lot of that stuff a pass because you're like, hey, this is an old game, but it came out now. So, that being said, none of that bothers me because I freaking love the Suikoden games so much. So that's very subjective, like if that's going to bother you or not, I think. So I think this game is it's got a wonderful story. We already talked about the story a little bit. I think it's got an excellent story and characters that I've played so far. It's very in-depth. There's lots to do, lots of mini games. There's lots of RPG elements where you can, of course, manage a lot of characters. Like, who do you want to level up? Who do you want to focus in on? What runes do you want to equip on each of them? And so which rune lens do you want to have them equip? Because you want to build them maybe a different way. Like, most of them kind of have a predetermined, hey, they're going to be a frontline tank. This one's going to be a backline magic caster. But you can still shape a lot of what moves they'll have, or exactly like how fast they'll be, or what armor you want to give them. So there's still some elements that you can.
Well, they streamlined some of that
RPG
too.
up.
Like the weapons, you just like you have a weapon and you're just like leveling up the weapon, basically.
That's right. And
not
I
having
like
to
that
buy
too, because
multiple
you have
weapons,
like each character has a named weapon, like, and that
Right.
gives it a little bit of like personality in the universe. Like, you have a sword and it's named Levi or whatever, and so when you level it up, it can become like Levi Plus or something like. But like, that's
Yeah.
your sword. Like, that's that's what you.
Right.
bring
I like
to the
that,
table.
man.
And so
Yeah.
there's something to that. Every character has their named weapon that and you just level that up as you get to better and better blacksmiths along the way, and they'll improve it.
Also the war, like the battles, like are freaking awesome. Like, oh my
Yeah.
god, they're so cool.
Like the turn-based
so cool.
grid battles that you move.
Yeah. It just looks cool. It like the way it's presented is really cool. As you get further in, I don't know how far you are, Tim, but like there's some great story moments attached to some of the later battles where it's like, oh shit, like this is happening, like these guys just popped up and like then these guys left, and it's like, oh my god.
a little Bravehearty.
Yeah, it's just so good.
Yeah, I love that too. And they even have a little like ticker along the bottom during those battles. It'll tell you specific names of characters that have died in glorious battle along the bottom as your friends like, what the heck?
Well, I think that's the Patreon, or not Patreon, Kickstarter
thing.
Yeah, I think it's like you basically, if you contributed to the Kickstarter,
your name gets added there.
Yeah, it gets added in there. It's like
that's
a soldier.
cool. I didn't know that. I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, because I think I've noticed like it'll be like person word whatever and then numbers at the end. So it's like that's my assumption. It's like the Kickstarter.
There, it seems like
that's
cool. I like that. Yeah, so that's easily my favorite Swimming in Sevens game. Kyle, what's a Swimming in Sevens that you've enjoyed this year?
My number one Swimming in Sevens game this year was 1000% Earth Defense Force 6.
Yeah.
I sat there with a buddy and played all of it, all in like a couple weeks or whatever. That game is nutty. It's awesome. It's stupid. It's so dumb. It's so janky. Oh, and I love everything about it. I love it so much.
I need those kind of games in my life.
They're just they're comfort food. I've been playing this series like forever, like since the Xbox 360. I think it was like Earth Defense Force 2015 or so. I forget what it was, but like, I love this series, man. It's just fun, and it is just a good reason to. You don't have to pay attention to anything. You just sit there and you just kill bugs, with all your weapons that you unlock, and it's just a nice time to be social with your friends. So.
I love that. It reminds me of like Maneater, where it's like, hey, this is dumb, and I realize the jank that's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I realize it is not polished as it should be, but boy, do I have fun being a shark, getting bigger and stupidly powered up and flopping around on the beach eating people. Like, so fun.
And I like that this game leans into being like a B movie, sci-fi movie or whatever, because you can be
Starship
like,
Troopers.
when people look at it and go, or even like older in that, like the thing that came from Mars, or like old 1960s, like really campy B movies.
Yeah.
It's just when you look at it, people go, why does it look like that? You're like, well, it's based off a B movie. It has this wiggle room to be kind of bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a good time.
Yeah, especially when you play co-op. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Mm.
Dan, any other Swimming in Sevens you want to highlight? Keep going if you got more.
So two just rattle off. Little Kitty Big City. I actually do want to mention this one because it's so actually
funny because I've heard so many people go, legitimately, this is a fantastic
it's fun.
Game.
It's really fun.
It kind of surprises me that it's at a 70, to be honest, because I've heard so many people talk about 70. So just
it's close. It's really close.
But like the city, like the little like kind of like city area that you can explore that they set up is like really fun to just explore, and you can get to like the rooftops and like there's things lying around everywhere, and you can just be a cat and like knock shit over, do that whole like, oh, this is sitting on the edge, I'm gonna whack this, like you could trip people are just walking around, you could just like trip them and they like freaking fall, like it's hysterical. There's like a lot of collectibles, which is really fun, like so it feels like a classic like PS1 game where like you're kind of like running around and collecting things and unlocking stuff. Like it's actually, I don't know, it's surprisingly really
it's also
fun.
very simple. Both of my youngest kids have played it on Game Pass, And yeah, they get stuck, and I'll have to go. So the only time I've played it is when I'm helping them because they can't figure out how to get up on a thing or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's very simple controls, and
Yeah.
it's very charming, very kid friendly. So that adds to the appeal.
Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I didn't realize that was at 77. Yeah, it's not my favorite of the three, but like I thought it was fun. I like that it does. But also kind of like I don't know. It's like a double-edged sword thing, but that it explores different areas. I thought that was unique, but some of them are kind of samey, so it just didn't feel different enough. So, but Luigi's Mansion's fun, dude. It's
I loved it playing it on the 3DS. That was a good time on the 3DS.
Yeah. And then this one I didn't. I mean, much like Dragon Age, I only got like 4 or 5 hours into. But I'm sorry, Visions of Mana at 75 is ridiculous. Like that should be.
That's another one where I've only heard mostly good things about. You know?
Yeah. Like it's really it's super polished. It's freaking beautiful. Visually, the music is really great. The voice acting is very like kind of like exaggerated in an anime-y kind of way, but like a lot of people watch anime.
Kind of feels it probably feels like an old school RPG in that way as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So the combat is like feels really smooth. It feels nice. Like I don't know why that's sitting at 75. I think that's egregious, but yeah, so far of what I played that I have enjoyed. So
that's a good call. I'll throw out there, even though I didn't play it a ton, I know you guys didn't play it at all, and Kyle gave you permission to forget about this one, Dan. But Rise of the Ronin.
Okay. Sorry, Dan.
I played it for a few hours. I do think the opening sequence was cool, the way you pick your character and then what happens with the villain.
I do like the twin thing. I do. Yeah. Now that you brought that up, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a cool setup, and then there is an open world to explore. It has elements of it that are appealing. You know, the setting is really appealing to me. There are parts of the combat that I thought, hey, that's kind of cool. But it's a classic Swimming in Sevens game. It's going to click for some people and it won't for others. It's not bad. I can't say it's objectively bad. It's just not going to work for everyone. That's why, like someone like our old buddy Derek loves it because the combat and the exploring just clicked for him, and he just dove in.
Well, and it's very Neo. So if like you like Neo, like you know,
it's very like
Neo. I feel like if you're a fan of like new Team Ninja, like you'll probably like this.
Yeah. So I wanted to call that one out too, because that's also in the high 70s, I think, is where it landed. The Cub, which I mentioned, was in the 70s. A fun little game if you get it for super cheap or if it comes to the Game Pass.
I liked it. Yeah, I didn't beat it, but I did like it.
It's very much like the Planet Alana, that type of kind of action adventure platformer, but mostly just narrative platformer where you're doing some running and jumping, but it's not super precise or anything. No combat really. Flintlock Siege of Dawn, a Souls-like with a very unique setting that I think is worth a look if you like Souls-likes and are looking for something. It's from the Ashen developers who I liked Ashen a lot. That was a cool game. And so this has a lot of, you can tell they learned a lot of lessons from that, and they made a really cool, fully fleshed out game in Flintlock Siege of Dawn. Lise Fanga, the Time Shift Warrior, which I already mentioned, that's that isometric kind of time shifty action game. Really interesting one there too. And last one I'll mention, because we have it on our channel too, and a lot of people are interested in it, it's called Drova Forsaken Kin. It's a pixel art game. It is an adventure, kind of an action RPG. It's very difficult. It's pretty dark, but it's got a Viking-like setting, and Drova is this land that you go to, sort of an afterlife type of a place. It's hard to explain until you actually play it, but really unique game too, but also in the 70s because it's a high barrier of entry. Like you start playing it and it can be overwhelming.
It's a spiritual successor to the Gothic series. So if anyone's familiar with Gothic,
that makes so much sense.
Yeah, it is the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense now that you say that. Okay, cool. Kyle, any other Swimming in Sevens?
I feel like we have to talk about how good Skull and Bones was, how good Suicide Squad was, how good, like
some quadruple A games.
Sevens, right? Yeah. A lot of the games that I played that I thought would be sevens got in right at the 80 mark. So like Grand Blue Fantasy Relink would be another one where I would have, someone said that's a 7-9, I'd been like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But just snuck into the 80s, So I only played good games this year, apparently. Objectively, good games.
I think
I usually have a whole list of sevens, which is funny.
I mean, this year has a few exceptions that are in the 90s, of course, like every year does. But it's a lot. Like the whole year feels like an 8 out of 10 type of a year for me.
It does,
and like with some like 9 out of 10 exceptions with your Final Fantasies, Indiana Jones, and like dragons. Like I get those
I
exist, but
think
there's
when IGN did their like rankings of Rake the Year, like everyone ranked it a B minus, which I'm like,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, I get collectively,
Yeah,
sure,
okay.
yeah, it was good,
Yeah.
like, but your parents are happy with a B, like not a C, yeah.
Yeah, one thing that you guys will notice as we get ready to move into our last category for this episode, we haven't said the title Astrobot at all. I promise you, in upcoming categories, I have a lot to say about Astrobot, but it didn't really fit with best story. It just doesn't.
No,
It's a Saturday
it's not
morning
a story,
cartoon,
yeah.
or as some people have put it, it's just one big PlayStation ad, which isn't wrong either necessarily.
Yeah. It's my favorite
celebration
ad of all time.
It's my favorite ad of all. It's a celebration, so doesn't belong there. It doesn't belong in our next category of smaller indie games. It doesn't belong in a Swimming in Sevens, and it's not an early access game. So this is just that episode where Astrobot doesn't apply. But believe me, it will be talked about quite a bit in the upcoming categories. At least by me, I can guarantee that. So
Gaston, keep your pants on. We'll talk about the platformer.
there's
Okay, just keep your pants on. All right,
plenty of time.
keep your pants on.
All right, well, let's shift into our last category of this episode, and that is best small game, or I guess you could call it non-AAA production, I guess is one way to put it. That might be a little too reductive, though. Like, generally speaking, it's best if this is something that didn't have a massive team or a huge budget, and sometimes it's hard to know, but usually you can tell. And some of these, you guys might push back and say, "Hey, that's not really a smaller game." Like, and that's totally fair. So let me know if I maybe miscategorized something here. A good example of that would be something like Age and Chronicle 100 Heroes. It feels like a really big RPG. It's not a very big team. Like that's an independent team that was Kickstarted.
The budget was small. The team was small. Yeah.
So like to me, that's
not
quintessential indie.
It was not distributed by a huge developer.
Right.
Right.
And on the other hand, I didn't include something like A Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Yes, that's a side-scrolling game. And yes, you could make an argument that it's more in line with a small game than some of the bigger games out there, but it truly is a AAA production in terms of
it was a $60 game. Yeah, I mean,
it was a full price game
for it. Yeah.
And I played the whole thing all the way through. I finished a ton of that game. I absolutely love it. And to me, it felt like a AAA quality production. It just happened to be side-scrolling. That's the only thing. It's just side-scrolling. Kind of like an Ori game. It's like, that's a huge game. Like that is massive and high production values. Anyway, we don't have to. I think you guys get what I'm saying. So with this chart with this spreadsheet that we're looking at here, same thing. A lot of eligible games on the left. I tried to remove all the major ones. I may have inadvertently removed something I shouldn't have, or left something on I shouldn't have. And then I tried to just bump things over to our recommended nominees that I feel like at least one of us have played or talked about or mentioned, to help whittle it down a bit. So I'll do a slow scroll if you want to look through the eligible games and see if I missed anything that jumps out to you. And then we'll start nominating any that come to mind. But there's a lot, and there's no way I could include every small game, even just on the Steam library. It's impossible. Like we're talking thousands of games in a year that come out on that platform.
Minds Beneath Us needs to come over because I won't shut up until one of y'all buy it. So one of y'all have to fall on the sword. I don't care.
I'm not doing it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not doing it.
All right. Did I bring over Squirrel with
consoles,
the gun?
Actually,
I brought a Squirrel with a gun.
I don't think so. I think it's Steam only.
Okay.
All right. Now I'm going to look it up real quick. Hang on.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that I need to bring over? If you're looking over here. All right. This does look really cool.
So good, dude. It is a talkie. You're gonna be reading everything, but like,
sure.
It's good. It's good stuff.
Okay.
I love walking around that world so much. It's so nice.
I brought over Little Kitty Big City, Neva, Nine Souls.
Listen, I barely played any of it, but Squirrel with a Gun, baby.
I brought it over. Yeah. I brought Shogun Showdown over, UFO 50,
UFO 50, yeah.
World of Goo 2, Plucky Squire. I mean, these are all Is Plucky Squire an indie game? Do you guys? I would consider it that. But what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
a small
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wish
yeah.
we could just say the word indie, but yes.
I mean, we can.
No, we
Um,
can, but I know why we're not doing it. I know why.
I know.
I know what Tim means when he goes, "I'm playing this new indie game." I don't go, "Well, wait a minute.
actually-
What are the semantics of?
Hold on here, buddy.
what does indie game mean to you? You know, like I. Silly.
Side note:
Let's
I brought
spend
over
the next
Cat
7
Quest.
hours discussing this.
I brought over Cat Quest 3, which I know Dan's talked about a bit on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Big
I
game
got-
for cats.
Cat Quest 1 and 2 are both down
Big
to
year
$3
for
on the Switch store, so I bought them for my daughter, and she already
yeah.
finished the first one. She loves
Oh,
she loved it.
incredible.
So,
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Those first 2 are like not short games if you want to do everything either. Like
yeah, she plowed through. She was like, "I'm really excited to play the next one." So anyway, she
awesome.
liked. All right, as far as recommended nominees, I won't read them all, but you'll hear us mention them if you're just listening on audio as we go through here. But again, it is avoiding the big giant games of the year because those will get it. They already have, and they'll continue to get their chances to shine. This is a chance for the smaller, the underdogs, if you will, the games that are usually going to be less than $40, sometimes 40 or more, but usually going to be less than $40 on the regular. So what would you guys, I'm going to start first, and then we'll kind of do the same thing where we kind of snake draft through to each pick out some games. So I am going to kick things off with Balatro. I'm going to move that one over. Kyle, what do you want to move over?
Mullet Mad Jack.
There it is.
What a ridiculous title.
My favorite looking game of the year for sure.
Ridiculous title, Dan, and the game itself even more ridiculous than the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it
good.
checks out. It
It's-
checks out.
So awesome.
Bizarre and amazing. Go ahead, Dan. What would you want to bring over?
Yuden Chronicle.
Yeah, dude. It's a good call. Dan, you pick another one. We'll do the
Never.
swing back through. Never. Yeah, good call.
Never gonna give you.
Kyle, what do you want to bring
gonna
over?
get you down.
Want to bring over Minds Beneath Us since it's sitting
Yeah,
down here?
bring that over. Yeah, bring over Minds Beneath Us.
Move it up here
Nice.
since that's alphabetically where it should live. All right, I'm going to bring over UFO 50.
Yeah, it's so good.
Heck yeah, man. I mean, we'll talk about it. Not every game in there is good, just to be really clear. But what a
No.
cool,
In fact, most
what a
of them are
cool
bad.
most of them are bad games.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The
Yeah,
point is
that's
not.
the point.
Anyway, we'll get to it.
About the experience.
Yeah.
It
really
is.
is about the experience.
It absolutely is about the experience. All right, I'm gonna bring over the Plucky Squire.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle.
Mini Shoot Adventures.
Thank you. What a stellar game.
So good. Yeah, it's so ridiculous how good that game is.
Dan. To bring over Little Kitty Big
You know what? Cat Quest 3. Do it.
Cat Quest.
Over a little big. Okay, I'm learning stuff about cats tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of cats happening
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Dan, you want to bring another one
Yeah.
over? Want to double up on the cats? Or is there something else? Hey, did you play the Into the Hive Chicken Police?
No,
follow-up?
not yet. No. I mean, eventually, I do want to get to that. I mean, I didn't play a
Squirrel
lot
with
of
the gun?
indie games this year. Apparently,
Played
I
some
really,
Squirrel with the Gun?
I really played like 2 super long RPGs that just sucked up most of my time.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all he played all year.
Yeah. It's
You know
true.
what? Bring. Not even kidding. Squirrel with the gun. Bring it over.
Yeah,
Do it.
yeah.
I want to bring my squirrel with a gun over then.
Hell
Which
yeah,
wasn't even
Kyle.
on the last list.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am your beast.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
I
Did
am
I
your
don't think I brought it
beast.
over. Here it is.
Look it up.
No, I remember.
You know it,
elevating
yeah.
this.
We did have a small conversation about it.
I remember I brought it up like, hey, this game looks cool, and then I actually forgot that I had even brought it up because when I was like, oh, what's this game Kyle's talking about? And I was like, oh
It's
yeah,
like, I played a
saw
demo
this.
for this. Yeah, oh,
I
that's
forgot about this.
I looked up videos after you mentioned it, and I was like, "This looks freaking
so
awesome."
fun. Yeah, I love like quick, like here's a level, kill these guys as cool
Yeah,
as
yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Do the next level. Yeah.
I mean, think
very
Angerfoot, Mullet Mad Jack, Ghost Runner.
sure.
It's the same. It's in that same spirit, but it just looks way different.
Yes, yeah, they're all like hyper stylistic roguelite type games. Yeah,
You're sprinting in first
you're
person,
sprinting and killing very quickly. Yeah.
destroying a lot of things. Yeah, that's a good call. I'm gonna bring over Islands of Insight. This is awesome. I played it a little bit, but also shout out to our buddy Jeff, who is not here. I think he would want to bring that one over for consideration. And then let's see. I mentioned Angerfoot, but it's not one that I would want to fight for. I played a few hours of Another Crab's Treasure. Funny attempt to do like a Souls-like in a under the sea setting. It just didn't.
Mhm.
I don't think it was very good. I know some
I'm a
people liked it.
courtkeeper. You liked Core Keeper, right?
I love Core Keeper.
There
Yeah.
you go.
You know what I didn't like this year that I was really excited for? Metal Slug Tactic.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
like that. I was so over the moon for that game, and then when it came out, I was like, "This is not it." Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
that's
technically
a
that
bummer.
one would count as a small game. So I played it for a little bit. I actually put it up on our channel of me playing it, and
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I actually really
Yeah.
enjoyed the first level, and by the time it got more difficult, and it's not because of the difficulty, I just started to go,
No.
I don't really like the options they're giving you here to be
No,
successful.
I just didn't like. It's not my favorite tactics game. I guess I
Yeah.
guess I had
That's all
something
it
else
is.
in my head. You know,
That's all it
and
is. It's just
kind of
not my favorite.
roguelite, which I don't think it needed to be either. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Was there any
Anyway.
others that you do want to bring over, Kyle?
I feel like Nine Souls has got to come over.
Nine Souls does have to come over.
Sure.
Dan, what about you? Any others you want to bring in? Come on, let's bring over
It's
Little Kitty Big
morbid.
City just for a
Do it. Meow meow. Meow meow.
I'm going to say there's a bunch I could. I'm a little surprised. So Satisfactory has been in early access for a long time, but we on our Game of the Year awards and our debates have never really considered it as a full game. So I'm giving it its flowers now that it's a 1.0 release. I don't know if you guys have looked at the reviews. It's got like 91 average on OpenCritic.
Oh wow!
Like,
No, I didn't know that.
it is
I don't know what this is.
it's a surprisingly pretty first-person survival crafting automation game where you are on a planet and you have to start mining materials and you build machines that will start to do it automatically
I
for
have
you.
seen. I saw
Conveyor
this pop up
belts
on a lot of
everywhere.
top 10 lists this year.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's
What
really
is-
fun and it can occupy all of your time if you get into it. But you have to. Some people hate that. They hate like I don't want to put conveyor belts from machine A to machine B. Totally get that. But if you like it, it's really fun.
What is this chaos? Like this looks so
Yeah.
stressful.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really deep, and I never got anywhere near that far. Like that's
That looks
really
so
fun.
stressful.
It starts out literally as you build like a little base, and then it says collect 10 more iron to upgrade. Like it takes you
Yeah.
through very easy to follow, hand-holdy.
That's
Like
chaos.
it does a good job of building up to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the time you get to the chaos, you understand it. Yeah.
That's right. That's
You
right.
understand the chaos.
Because at first you have to go to the machine and actually like process each piece of iron ore, and eventually you can kind of automate that through a machine you can build, but you have to just get power for it. So anyway, Satisfactory is an interesting one. I've played too many, so I'm just gonna. I don't want to bring over everything that I've played, but I do want to highlight ones that I've liked. So I never ended up getting the Steamroad Heist 2. My son played it and finished it, loved it, and is mad at me that I haven't gone because I told him like I got to do what my friend Dan always does. I have to go finish the first one, and then I'm gonna play the second one.
You need that lore. You need that
So
lore.
mad. I'm so mad right now.
But here's the
Yeah.
thing: I asked him. I was like, "Well, do I need to go back and finish the first one?" He goes, "Well, you don't have to, but you probably should." And I was like, "All right, well,
See?
you
There
just
you
told
go.
me. You just told me I should. That's your fault."
Yeah.
But he loved it. He thinks that's a really good one. I'm gonna bring over Shogun Showdown.
I like this one. Yeah.
Really cool little game. I'm gonna leave the cub there. I've talked enough about it.
I like the cub, but yeah, I kind of.
It's not worthy of a fight over here. Same with Mobius Machine. A cool little side-scrolling. You're a little tiny spaceman jumping around, shooting these globs of aliens and stuff like that. A little Metroidvania-esque, but it doesn't do everything super well, which is why it got, I think, in the 60s or 70s. Tiny Glade is as cozy gets. World of Goo 2 is exactly like World of Goo 1, which is why it's hard for me to like really show it too much love. It does a few different things, but it's mostly the same thing. You're building structures with these little globs of goo and trying to, it's physics based puzzles basically. I never did get the Sovereign Syndicate. I think I played the demo for it and it's like a World War II setting. So I never did get to that full game. Robo Beat is the tempo based shooter where you pick up different cassette tapes and swap them in and out. So think like
Sounds fun.
Metal Hellsinger, but like less metal.
Sounds fun though.
Yeah, that one's pretty cool. Rogue Waters is really neat, but I think it's got some limitations in its tactics gameplay, so it's hard for me to fight for that one. Sorry, I played way too many of these. One Button Bosses I want to play. It looks awesome. I recommend checking that one out. It literally you hit one button.
I do want to name drop Dread Delusion if you want an old school like Morrowind or Oblivion style like game.
Dread Delusion. Okay.
Yeah, that one was fun. What was another one? Oblivion Override. That one was a pretty fun one as well.
Oh.
I think it was like a side scroller. Again, not worth bringing over. Maniac, I said earlier, it's a garlic light, so it's like Vampire Survivors, but you're a psychopath killing innocent people. So
Oblivion
for the
Override
kids.
looks awesome.
For the kids. Yeah, Oblivion Override's pretty fun. Yeah.
Kind of has like a transformery enemies that you're fighting.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
interesting.
Pixel Noir was also a lot of fun, but these just are games that I just like liked, didn't love, you know.
Yeah, no, I get it. Okay, I think that's most of them. Dungeons of Hinterberg had some promise. It's on Game Pass if you guys want to give it a look. I found the gameplay to be incredibly repetitive, and it felt like a very, very simple and low budget 3D adventure game. It just wasn't for me, but I know some people like it, which is fine.
It had a cool look. I like the colors.
Yeah, the colors are cool. Yeah. And then last but not least, I thought Empire of the Ants concept is cool. You literally are in like this. It's not totally photorealistic, but they're going for a photorealistic look of running an actual ant colony. And you're like, I haven't tried it.
Dan,
but-
you bought Bloomtown, didn't you?
I did. I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I've the
Dang.
concept of it just
Me
sounds
too.
so,
I would
so
love to bring
interesting.
that one over, but I haven't played it.
Yeah.
Like it's Stranger Things, it's Earthbound, it's like all these
Persona.
like things. Persona, yeah, it's all these things that I like. Oh, I like those stuff, but
I
haven't
like
gotten
these
to it.
things. Yeah, exactly.
I know a lot of folks love Animal Well. I did play it for a little while, and I understand
Yeah.
how there's like, oh, there's things that you didn't think of that you can use these new abilities to do. I just didn't find it to be that fun. So I just I think it's a bit overrated. I know a lot of people.
I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get it. So I'm glad you do. Maybe you can tell me sometime. But
I think it's way overrated. I think
Yeah.
it's got its moments though, and Anomaly Agent is pretty cool too.
I do like Anomaly Agent a lot. Yeah, it's fun. It's just simple. Like they're just
It's very
there's not-
simple.
There's not a lot
The
to it.
whole opening scene reminds you of like Old Boy or something. You're going down the hallway and you're just like,
Yeah. It's a cool
kicking
like I
fools.
like games like this when
put
side
it
scrollers
over
that are
here.
just like combat based like side scrollers, and you do like change
Yeah.
up. Like there's levels where you're on a vehicle, and sometimes you have a sword, and sometimes you have the like they do. It's a fun game. I
and the idea
totally
is that
remiss
you
that I didn't
are
bring that over. Yeah.
it's almost like think of something like Control or something where you're part of an agency that goes to see these paranormal events that are happening.
Oh yeah.
Time travel-y, whatever. So there's that element to it where you're like going through portals and stuff like that. And anyway, it's pretty fun. I thought it was pretty. I didn't get super far. I think I got to like a train level, and I got pretty
Yeah.
far into that level. That's about as far as I got. But it's pretty violent too, which is cool.
Yeah.
All right. So
Heck yeah.
let's organize this. Last call. Anything else we want to move over? It's
Organize
pretty good.
this.
Pretty
Hails
good
Orc.
list. It's a pretty good list so far. I'll call it again. I just started it today. 1000X Resist is a really cool little narrative game, and I just want to say it's got overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam for whatever that's worth.
It's number 3 on my wish list. So like,
yeah, I
um,
have a
very interested.
feeling. I started it today and I was like, this doesn't look like a Tim game. I don't know, but I started it and now I'm like, I gotta find out what happens. I gotta
Yeah.
figure out what is going on.
What is
in this-
going on?
Yeah. Yeah, little X-Files-y, little Fringe. Like it's like, what is happening? I don't
I
understand.
love some Fringe. Yeah.
All right, so we have moved over into our round 1 nominee list. Anomaly Agent, Balatro, Cat Quest 3, Core Keeper, Aiden Chronicle, I Am Your Beast, Islands of Insight, Little Kitty Big City, Minds Beneath Us, Mini Shoot Adventures, Mullet Mad Jack, Neva, Nine Souls, Satisfactory, Shogun Showdown, Squirrel with the Gun, Plucky Squire, and UFO 50. So we got to narrow this down to 10, which means that we need to get rid of about 7 or so. That'll be in this second round honorable mention list. All right. So I do think it's fair to put things like Squirrel with the Gun probably in honorable mentions.
But
Yeah.
like, what a man! Like, what a ridiculous concept! Like, somebody sat there and was
Squirrel
like,
with a
"Yeah,
gun.
squirrel holding a gun."
I'm still waiting for that like Killer Bean game to come out, so I can like make that game of the year whenever that finally
Yeah.
comes out.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Dude,
that's
that
my
looks so
That's my
fun.
squirrel with a gun. You know?
Yeah, it's like, isn't that like Max Payne slow-mo? Like
yeah.
Yeah,
It looks
yeah.
like a really good action game,
it does.
but you're a
It
bean.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Dude, this
absolutely
actually
right.
controls really solid
I was
though.
gonna say,
And
this is probably that's what made me think of it. Is that like
Yeah.
they're kind of similar vibes in
Yeah,
terms of
this has like Matrix vibes.
I
Yeah,
watched
it's
the
like
It's
opening
not really
after you
more
talked
of a-
about
like
it.
it's like a real squirrel. Like it's not
Yeah,
like a
it's a
cartoon.
squirrel.
Like, it's not like
Yes. Yeah.
human squirrel. Yeah.
I watched the opening
Right.
after you talked about it, and it is hilarious the way you make eye
Yeah.
contact with the agent and stuff
Yep,
before.
yep.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
funny.
Absurd.
All right, so I think mainly because I only played maybe an hour and a half, and they were fun puzzles, a little janky, and kind of a weird. It was, I don't know. Islands of Insight is interesting, but without Jeff being here to really champion it, it's hard for me to keep it in our 10. So I'm gonna put that one in honorable mentions for now, unless we decide to change our mind. All right, I feel the same way. I don't know.
You could do the same with I Am Beast, because I'm the only one who played that. I really liked it. I just think we have a stronger 10.
Did you play a lot of it though? Like, to me, that's a big factor.
Yeah, because there's only like 12 like levels or something like that, and I played like 8. So yeah, I got.
You played a good amount of it.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah,
Let's
but like again. I guess
we'll put it in like the on deck to go to honorable mentions.
All right.
Same with Little Kitty Big City. I know Dan had to step away, but when he comes back, that's a good example of that. I'd rather
let's kill all the things he loves.
Based on what you've talked about and what I've looked at, I'd rather have something like Minds Beneath Us be in the 10.
I really feel like even if it ends up in the lower half of the list, like I feel like
that should be up here. I feel like Mini Shoot Adventures is in the 10.
Yeah.
I think Neva is in the 10. Sure. I'm gonna put Core Keeper with these bottom 3.
Lucky Squire. You and Dan both beat it. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Core Keeper is an absolutely brilliant like survival adventure, especially with co-op type game. Think Terraria or something like that, but just a different point of view. And by the way, it's funny that developers actually making a Terraria like as their next game. Called something weird. It's like a weird word. It's like I forget what it is. It's like a made up word. But I put it in the same area as something like Iron Beast. I played Core Keeper for a lot. That's true. I played Core Keeper for a lot, but I'm the only one who played it. So I'll leave it here in like the I don't know what we call this. It's on death row.
It's on death. Okay. All right.
Oh man.
That's a little dark. I can't think of a better way to put it.
You're waiting for the mayor to call.
I think Aiden Chronicles.
Definitely makes it over. Absolutely.
I think Plucky Squire.
Plucky Squire definitely makes it over. Y'all both played and beat it.
I think UFO 50 is in our 10, but I
love it up, dude.
Do it up.
Move it over.
Listen, it's easy to hate Balatro. That game, what it's trying to do, it is easy to hate it. Kyle says.
I find it every day I wake up. It's very easy.
But
it
keeps showing up.
This game.
But I gotta tell you, it is a really good game. It's one of those things where
I want to celebrate one game developers, and I want to celebrate ones that make not like a international splash. I mean, like
right.
This game is huge. Like
it is.
You could absolutely liken it to like this generation's Tetris. You know, like it is.
Sure.
It is
that thing that is easy just to pick up, do really quickly, put down, move about your day or whatever. Anybody can enjoy it.
Wordle. Like that game of the year winner from 2021 or whatever year.
God damn it.
Better not have been. I don't want to look that up.
I'm also waking up thinking about that, Tim, and full of fury.
So
Dan, did you ever play Balatro? I know Kyle didn't.
No. I'm not really I'm not good at like card games like that. Like unless it's blackjack, because like I feel like the rules are easy to wrap your head around with that.
You know what's interesting
about
a
very strong like. If I'm gonna play cards, I want to hold cards.
Like I get that completely.
I get it's so overwhelming how strong I feel that way. But like, and that is such a me problem. So yeah.
I absolutely understand what you're saying. I will say with this one, with the roguelike nature of it, the idea is you're kind of like it's poker on steroids. So it's like one player poker. Absolutely on steroids, and then the combos and the jokers that you get that power up cards and power up certain hands and double and triple and quadruple and 8x your points, it gets ridiculous and silly, and that's what makes it really fun. Is when you unlock these bonuses, and next thing you know, you got like 600,000 points in one hand or something stupid. Where at the beginning you're getting like 8, and you're like, "Yay, I won!" Like it builds up to that, and then of course the roguelike nature of it. Once you lose. But you've unlocked some of these power-up Joker cards for good, and now you go back, and now you might get one of these. So, like, it's got this loop to it that is really good. It's quick, it's snappy. You pick different decks that have their own pros and cons to them, and they did a really good job with like achievements as well, or whatever you want, trophies. It depends on the platform you're playing on. With letting you feel like you're constantly unlocking something for the next time. So. You don't even have to be smart with poker because it tells you what you have. Like it does a good job of like you don't have to. I remember what country was it? China or somewhere where they wanted to give it a rating because of the gambling, and it's like there's no gambling. Like I understand cards, but
you hear poker and immediately people go gambling.
Yeah,
gambling. No, but it's not that at all. I'm leaning towards putting Balatro
It should be on there. I think it should be on
in
there.
our top 10 at least. Same with like.
I feel very strong. I feel very strongly about Mullet Mad Jack, to be honest.
Yeah, that needs to be on there. I played enough of it to second
so
it.
strongly. I think that game has the coolest art style of the year, in my opinion.
All right, I'm a Shogun.
If you
Showdown
felt strongly
guy.
about it, you'd have a mullet right now. All right, show me your mullet.
Okay, I'll check it. I'll check in a couple months. Yeah.
I'm thinking Cat Quest 3 is probably in this death row here, but it could
The Seth row, yes. Yeah.
probably. Nine Souls and Satisfactory, to me, I put them in the same bucket where I've only scratched the surface on both those games, but boy, are they both super high quality.
Yeah, I feel that way about Nine Souls. I haven't played Satisfactory, but Nine Souls I've only played like 30 minutes of. But like, boy, that 30 minutes made an impression.
Yeah, it's really good. But can I fight for it? Is that I don't know if these are the ones to get that final spot. I'd put Core Keeper in over both of them. I'd even be happy with Anomaly.
I feel like if it's going to be on the list, someone needs to have played it longer than 30 minutes. So
yeah. So Dan played the demo. I played it. And if you guys could see it on our, I think I put it. No, Dan put it on our channel. But I did play Nine Souls for a little while and
The
thought
demo
this was
a
really
while
cool.
back, yeah.
Because it's on Game Pass. So
I would say actually Cat Quest, if we're doing like official honorable mentions, Cat Quest 3 over Squirrel with a Gun, because I've actually finished. I played that all the way through, and it's like legit like a fun couch co-op.
Oh, so like these are ones I'm gonna put in honorable mentions if we.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. So we've got one spot left. Essentially, it seems like we've got 9 pretty well set, and it's a matter of these 6, which one do we want to bump into there? I know 2 of us played Anomaly Agent. 2 of us have played Little Kitty Big City. I don't really have a strong opinion about what should go in there. Like, to me, if I had to pick it, I'd put Core Keeper in. I think it's super
That seems
super
like
high
the one
quality.
that makes the most sense.
Yeah,
'Cause I know a lot of people like that one too. So
it's a really good game, but again, it's not for everybody. It's a niche game. I'll admit that.
Right.
Like, some people are going to be like,
a
"What?"
lot of indie games are that,
indie
right?
is a niche thing. Yeah, I would say that
It's the kind of game that you start out and you're like in this little hub and you don't know what you're supposed to do until you walk over to a wall and start hitting it, and you're like, "Oh, I just collected some." I forget what that resource is. I think it's just rocks to start with, and then you can craft something. And then you break a piece of wood, and you get a piece of wood. Now you can craft an axe or whatever. So it's one of those games that you start to craft things, and you build your fort, and then you go out and fight a boss, and you come back with the new items, and then you build. Like, it starts to really grow. It's really fun. All right, I'm gonna put it on our top 10. And then that means Cat Quest, Anomaly Agent, Little Kitty Big City, I Am Your Beast, Satisfactory, Squirrel with the Gun, Islands of Insight, and Nine Souls are officially our honorable mentions for so far. We'll add some more to that list for best small game or indie game of the year. Feel all right about that?
Yeah, I feel good.
Good.
All right. All right, so that means these games, you know what, let's move this guy down so we have plenty of space to operate with. That means these games are going to be fighting for a spot in our top 5. Balatro, UFO 50. Here, let's sort them. Balatro, Core Keeper, Aiden, Minds Beneath Us, Mini Shoot Adventures, Mullet Mad Jack, Neva, Shogun Showdown, Plucky Squire, and UFO 50. I think for the sake that it got in last and I'm the only one who played it, Core Keeper is probably an honorable mention for this category because we don't really share that one amongst us. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's makes sense.
All right, what else? Is there anything else in that same realm that's probably a honorable mention because maybe we don't have enough people that have played it?
Probably Minds Beneath Us would be that. Not enough of us have played that. I don't know.
It looks so good, Kyle. I keep looking at it.
So good, yeah. It's so insane. The writing, the writing's so good. It's a very good game. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's fluctuating between like a 94 and 96% positive on Steam.
Woo!
That's crazy.
I feel like we all really like Eiyuden Chronicles. So that's probably going to make it in the top 5, right? I mean, that feels pretty.
I think so.
Feels like slam dunk to me.
Yeah, I think that's going to be up there. I'm going to go ahead and move Minds Beneath Us down here.
Slamiest of dunks, even.
Yeah.
I think Mini Shoot Adventures belongs in the top 5, but
I think it's super awesome. I think that game is great.
Dan, I think you need to play that game. It's really fun.
Yeah, you like Zelda enough. Like, you get it. Yeah.
That's another one that you spoke about several times, much like Banishers. So
definitely, I think I think
Neva's up
Neva
there.
belongs in the
Yeah.
top 5.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
beautiful, unbelievably beautiful.
It's so
That's
and I,
like
the
immediately the music
audacity.
was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, I was so it looks so good on the Switch OLED. It looks so sharp. Ugh.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And there's a
Very-
section you'll get to where there's like reflections on the ground, and it actually turns. At first, it's visual and it's really pretty, and then it becomes a gameplay element where you can't see things. And you have to use the reflections to see where things are.
That's super cool.
But that part, I just kept taking screenshots. I was like, this is so pretty. Why is this game so pretty?
Feels like y'all both talked really highly about the Plucky Squire. I feel like that
Yeah.
has to be in the 5.
Yeah, that one's just so charming.
I agree.
Very,
I think
very
it's in the
charming.
top 5 of the year of smaller games. It's also like I also just want to give it a credit for it's kind of a feat because it's a smaller team doing really impressive visual stuff
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that not many studios can do. Combination of creativity, but also technical know-how. It works. They made a game that works that does all these different visual styles. It's really interesting.
I'm kind of feeling like there's just too many choices here, so we might have to do a top 10. Because I mean, I'm looking at all of them. Like, I feel like we all really feel passionately about quite a few of them, right?
I'm okay
Like,
with the top 10 on this. It'd be easy to do. That way none of them are like kicked out. It'd be
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I felt like I don't know. I guess with story, I felt like we could be concise with it and do 5. This feels like because I feel passionately about Ayuden, Neva, Plucky Squire, yeah, and then that would those 3. So
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy to do.
And
It
then I
still
know,
gives us
like-
the same, in a way, a similar need to. I mean, we already kind of had decided these 2 are probably at the bottom then, right? So that means that
Mhm.
since Core Keeper we kicked out first, that's probably going to sit at. Here, let me move these out of the way. That's probably going to sit at 10. Minds Beneath Us is going to sit at 9 because those are ones that we just. And by the
Only
way,
one person's played.
I'm just
yeah.
going based on sometimes. I mean, this happens all the time with these. When one of us hasn't, or multiple of us haven't played a game, we have to go based off how you described it, and then going to maybe look at the game listing and look at screenshots real quick to get an idea. I just looked at Minds Beneath Us. I feel like I'm gonna love that game, and I know Kyle already loves it. With Core Keeper, it's hard for me to feel. I'm not saying you guys wouldn't enjoy it. You might,
Mhm.
but it's harder for me to like. I'm not pushing either of you to like drop everything and go play it. I think you might have a good time with it, but I don't know. It's not necessarily.
yeah, it's like
Minds
there's so many of
Beneath Us
those like
to me.
survival-ish games. If it is
So
it's a
many.
survival game, right? So it's like it's got to have a certain groove that like hits you.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
like for
Yeah.
me, it's like Valheim is like 10 out of 10. Freaking, you know,
Yeah.
like that's just like that to me is like what you need to. That's the standard, you know, like.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm gotta look and see where did I put. I actually personally have Shogun Showdown above it anyway. So to me, if that's going on there too, I don't know. That probably is right at 8. It's probably it's in the same range. But I've got Shogun Showdown above Core Keeper personally. To be fair, I have both of those above Plucky Squire, but that's not a slight on Plucky Squire. That's just my personal preference. I really I got really hooked on Shogun Showdown and Core Keeper both. Those just kind of clicked for me. But so I'm thinking right now of putting Shogun Showdown in the bottom half as well.
Okay.
Unless I mean, Kyle, you played it a little bit, right?
Yeah, I played
know
a little bit. Yeah.
I know you liked it, but I don't know if it clicked as much for you.
Didn't click as much for me. I don't think that's a good. Like that feels like a game you play on the computer. I feel like there's a lot of like holding down buttons to do stuff like
True.
on the. And like I did not like the controller scheme for a controller.
It's not intuitive on the controller. I made
It's
a lot of
not.
mistakes. on
Yeah,
that.
it's not.
Like you hit Y to flip around or something like it's something about it is just not quite.
There were many a times where I wasted multiple turns in a row trying to
Yes.
figure out what did what again.
Yeah. Yeah, because it does not. It goes quick.
It is
so does
cool
not
when you
confirm.
get a perfect like.
Oh.
Oh, I blocked the thing. I did this. I dashed. I did like there are a few times I've been like yes, you know.
Yeah.
On that level, so.
I got to ask about Balatro because I think I'm the only one who put any time into it, and I did put a lot of time into it. I think I, a dozen hours or so total of kind of playing that game, mostly on PC, a little bit on Steam Deck as well. But again, trying to be consistent with how we treat these things. It feels like a bottom half game because I'm the only one who played it.
It might be the top of the bottom half though, just because of its pedigree.
Somewhere in the 6-7 range.
You know, so it's like like Mullet Mad Jack like might sneak in at 7. I would probably put Balatro at like 6. You know.
I like that. Yeah, I think that makes sense because these other ones I think all of these now have
A lot more
multiple
love,
of us.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Multiple of us playing and loving. All right, so my gut as I look at these games, I'm trying to think combination of what's best, but also what's my favorite and what I know is your guys' favorite. I feel like Ayuden's probably in the top one or two. If it's not the top spot, it's up there. But
I feel pretty good about it being number one.
what's your gut on that, Dan? What do you think?
Yeah, like you said, it's a spiritual successor to a pretty beloved RPG series, literally from the creator, R.I.P. Of the original Suikoden. And they just, I don't know, they did a really, aside from just some things feeling slightly archaic mechanically or systems wise, and just kind of like the way maybe you get from certain areas and just certain things. But yeah, it's such a, the scope of it is just so grand for what I'm assuming is a pretty small team and something that was kickstarted. So it's like, well, here's your money. Like, this is part of your budget. And then, I'm sure there's other elements too, as far as like money wise going on in the background. But there's just, and the voice acting, like all of the people you can recruit have a voice, whether they speak a lot or not, because obviously there's more prominent main characters in the game. But like all voice acted, and to be honest, I think pretty solid.
Yeah, really well.
Pretty solid.
There's times when your main character Noah, when he'll yell, and not to tie everything back to Attack on Titan, but I'm like, hey, that's a little, it has a little vibe of, when he's screaming Attack on Titan.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just, the game was definitely more emotional than I was expecting. It was more intriguing than I was expecting. There's definitely some great music throughout the whole year. It's not like I don't know if it would be in my top 10, but like there's actually some good music in there.
Really good music, yeah, especially that opening theme. There are some villages or some areas I'm like, it's fine, but there's certain, especially that opening theme and certain moments that I was like, dude, this music is going way harder than it needs to.
Yes, yeah, which I always appreciate.
I always appreciate that. So I personally have Mini Shoot Adventures as my top small game of the year. I think it's just the best game. It is made by two people, which does, to me, it helps just a little bit give it that boost. But it is just functionally, like mechanics wise, I can't find any flaws in the way it's been created. Yes, it's very simple. It's not the biggest game, but it's like playing a flashback Zelda game, but it's also a twin shoot game. But you have upgrades, so there's little minor RPG like things. There's areas you can't get to till later, so it's got that little touch of Metroidvania or Zelda to it, where you need to get something to unlock. And it's just so satisfying. I 100% of that game. I couldn't stop playing it. I kept going to get like the true ending. Like you can finish the game, but then you can keep playing and finish something in order to get to the true ending. And I find so that was my number one. Neva just barely right now I have ranked above Eiyuden Chronicle because I'm still early in Eiyuden Chronicle.
Yeah.
But Eiyuden has moved its way up. Like it passed UFO 50. It passed, Shogun Showdown. It passed some of these other games. Because
at the same time with the Eiyuden, out of all of these, it is definitely the biggest game. So there's definitely more room for flaws. Yeah. Like, I mean, for example, like I do think some of the dungeons aren't like, or to be honest, most of the dungeons aren't like fun to explore.
Yeah.
They're not
like very basic linear maps. And it's like, okay, this is a dead end. There's going to be a treasure chest sitting there. Oh, look, there it is. So there's a treasure chest.
You could say that's a pretty common thing for all JRPGs, though.
Right.
A lot
especially
of them.
Not especially the old, especially the PS1.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
But especially PS1,
even
PS2
like
era.
Persona is like that. Like you just get dumped into what is essentially a kind of a linear world, linear dungeon, and like if you go down the one that ends, yes, there's going to be a treasure chest at the end, like Tim was saying. So it's just like yeah. I don't know. I have a lot of forgiveness for that, I guess.
I do too. Yeah. That's why to me it's more of a strong 8, maybe even a 9 from what I've played of it so far. And not the 77 average is way off from an 8, but
77 is still good.
It's still very good. Kyle, what's your gut on what's left here? What do you like that's out of here that you personally would kind of?
I mean, I feel like the Eiyuden Chronicles falls in the Final Fantasy 7 kind of like we all played it, we all liked it. It's easy to like crown that, even though it may not be any of our number ones or whatever. I think out of these, it might be my number one out of these.
Because you
Neva-
would probably have Mullet Magic at the top, right?
Out of these, yeah. But I also like and realize that like I really like the style of that game more than I like the gameplay, even though I like the gameplay a lot.
Yeah, the style is so good.
And Neva made a really, 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 really good first impression. I just haven't gotten far into it, but like I could absolutely a week from now, like next week, I'm gonna be like, guys, I beat Neva. We're wrong. That was number one. Or we were all wrong.
Yeah, to me, Neva and Minishoot are like neck and neck as my top two.
And Minishoot's another one where it's like I've got like an hour into that. Like if I got to play a little more, and I like huge first impression. Like it just these are games that just like really wowed me the very first time I played them. So it's like I could really go, and UFO 50 is kind of the same way, where it's like maybe it's at the lower end of this 5 just because like the game's
I think it
fun
is
to play, but like I think the concept of that game is outstanding.
The second half of those games do actually get much more playable and more fun.
I am noticing that. I am in the back 25 right now. Yeah.
And it's fun. It's almost like they intentionally made better games as they went, which I'm like, all right, you could have made them all good, but whatever. So I think UFO 50 sits at 5.
Yeah.
Out of these that are left. That's what my gut is telling me, because I think Plucky Squire. Yeah, actually, honestly, all 4 of these could kind of finish in any order up here.
Yeah, Plucky maybe feels like 4.
Yeah, I think so too. And then then it just comes down to kind of what Kyle was saying. It sounds to me like a combination of things. The 3 of us that played it, and which ones have all of us played, and which ones did we all have really positive feelings about? It sounds like Eiyuden at the top, Neva just below it, Minishoot right below that. It's just what it feels.
Sounds good to me. And again, in a week, whenever Dan and I play more Neva, like maybe we come back and are like, what had happened? What did we do?
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like Gris is like a game that I think about often.
Same here,
visually, but like the music is like.
I think you'll do the same with Neva.
Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like I could end up being like, actually, Neva is something that I'm liking a little bit more, just because it's a little more concise and a little shorter, and it's just kind of like feels good to get from like breeze through it, but it's like it's beautiful, and
there is something to the scope of Eiyuden Chronicle, the story they're telling, and the number of characters and their intricate personalities and detail of design while telling a grand story. And the Kickstarter success is always fun when you've got this studio out of nowhere that really just gets the boost that it needs. So I don't know. I'm also pretty happy with putting that one at the top, just because
Dan brought up a really good point earlier in the year about Eiyuden as well, where it's like the little amount of people on that staff and the little amount of money that it had for the budget. They had every single person with voice acting, and RPGs with much bigger budgets.
Right.
Still, Metaphor. Half of Metaphor is not.
Dude, it's so infuriating.
It's so crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, so it's like,
so
and I don't understand what goes into that. Like it could be a way harder process than I'm giving it credit for. But like a small game like Eiyuden going out of its way to like really get those voice tracks down, when big, huge games just kind of sometimes like skip it. That's worth mentioning.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty of moments in Eiyuden where there is. It's similar to Metaphor, where there's just the moments randomly where there isn't. But again, it is a smaller game, like you're, like you're acknowledging.
Most of the cut scenes or story moments have all the voice acting. And then you'll just talk to characters on the side, and it won't, which is actually okay. I don't necessarily need people talking to me all the time.
Yeah, Metaphor will have main story plots in
just
with
text.
No dialogue. Yeah, like it's nuts.
It's so weird.
And like it doesn't bother me that much, but like it does make me want to go out of my way to go Eiyuden, takes the extra steps, to do that,
Yeah, it's very impressive. All right, I think that's a fair ranking. That puts Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes at the top spot, Neva at number 2. So for our best small or indie game of the year at number 10, in our top 10, we have Core Keeper. Number 9 is Minds Beneath Us. Number 8 is Shogun Showdown. Number 7 is Mullet Magic. 6 is Balatro. 5 is UFO 50. 4 is The Plucky Squire. 3 is Minishoot Adventures. 2 is Neva. And number 1 is Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. That is your definitive best small or indie games of the year. It's just science at this point.
It is.
It's just science.
Y'all
Can't
saw
argue
the
with it.
math.
Video game science.
You have our work, you know.
Exactly.
Showed our work. It's all there.
That's right.
The best kind of science. They should start teaching it in school. Video game science.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree.
In school.
Well, that does it for round 1 of these Game of the Year debates. And I'll tell you, the upcoming episodes, it's going to get even more challenging. I want us to focus in on gameplay for the next one, gameplay and visuals. To like as Dan was saying, the most important component to him, and I think in a lot of depending on the game, for me, I agree, is story. I think other components that you could argue are equally, in some cases, more important, depending on the game, would be gameplay and then visuals.
Yeah.
What's the style? I'm going to look at this for a long time. Do I like it? Does it work? Does it make sense? So those are 2 major features that we're going to highlight. And then in the third week, we'll just focus in on best overall game. And in between, we'll sprinkle in a couple things like we did Swimming in Sevens. We're going to do best remaster or collection. We'll do those kind of things sprinkled in as well. And that's just our picks for those things. So, yeah, I think that pretty much does it. I'll tell you what, I wanted to highlight the contributions from I just posted this on the group earlier this evening, so I didn't give people a lot of time. But our buddy Dan Phillips gave us his thoughts on each of these. So he says for best early access game, he picks Path of Exile 2. He thinks it's really challenging and with fun but fair gameplay. For best indie or small game, he picks UFO 50.
Awesome.
He says if that counts, like absolutely that counts.
It counts, buddy.
yeah,
absolutely. And then as far as best story, he goes with Metaphor, ReFantasio.
Oh,
So-
okay.
He's right.
We're not too far off on really all of
He's
those.
right.
Like he's got all those pretty well nailed down. So, but anyway, thank you all for tuning in, for watching, for listening. Let us know what you think are the best in any of these categories. What we got wrong, what we got right. I'm sure if you watched this and thought we got something wrong, you'll let us know. So make sure you do that. But appreciate you watching, listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.